Long before the world was fully shaped, when the skies were still soft and misty, the water stretched endlessly. Gentle waves hummed quietly against unseen shores, and the scent of salt carried softly on the wind. The sea was deep and vast, a quiet rhythm that pulsed beneath the stillness of the early world. It was here, in the hidden depths, that Poseidon first stirred. He did not rise with noise or haste. Instead, he opened his eyes slowly, as if the water itself was easing him awake. A cool current brushed against his skin, brushing along his shoulders, whispering in soft spirals. The water tasted of earth and life, familiar yet new, and he breathed it in, feeling it move through him. There was a calmness in the depths, a sense of belonging, as though the waves themselves welcomed him. Poseidon sat among the gentle swells, his hair drifting around his face like strands of deep green kelp, and he watched the light from above filter through the water. Tiny particles sparkled like golden dust in the sunbeams that pierced the surface. Fish swam past with soft ripples, leaving trails of shimmering scales. Even in these early moments, he felt the quiet curiosity stir within him. Who was he meant to be in this vast, silent world? He sensed a pulse, a quiet heartbeat beneath the waves, and instinctively, he reached out to it. The currents moved with him, a gentle embrace rather than a forceful tug. He traced his fingers through the water, feeling its coolness and the soft pull of its endless flow. Each movement made ripples that spread in smooth circles, touching everything nearby. Poseidon felt a small thrill at the sensation, a subtle delight in his own presence within this ever-moving realm. Even alone, the sea seemed to recognize him, welcoming him as a friend. Above the water, the sky held a soft glow, like a promise of warmth and light. Clouds drifted lazily across the horizon, their edges glowing pink and gold. The breeze moved in gentle whispers, rustling the surface of the water, coaxing it into tiny waves that lapped rhythmically. Poseidon rose slowly, allowing his gaze to drift upward. The wind carried the sound of distant rivers joining the sea, and in those quiet murmurs he felt the first stirrings of wonder. There was so much to explore, so much to understand. He swam upward, moving with the ease of someone born to the water. Every motion was soft, rhythmic, and natural. The water pressed gently against his skin, a familiar friend, and the sunlight danced across his face as he broke the surface. A quiet breeze kissed his cheeks, and for the first time he felt the touch of the world above the waves. The sea responded, curling gently around him, almost like a protective cloak, and he realized he was not simply part of it. He belonged to it, in a way that felt deep and unshakable. Nearby, the first signs of life began to shimmer along the edges of the water. Small birds swooped low, brushing the surface with delicate wings. A school of tiny fish leapt in quiet arcs, creating sparkling trails in the sunlit shallows. Poseidon reached out to them, and as his fingers brushed through the air, the creatures scattered and glided back into place, a gentle dance of motion. He smiled softly, realizing the world was not only vast but full of subtle, hidden rhythms. Everything had its own quiet heartbeat. The soft hum of distant waves carried a song that seemed almost like a lullaby. Poseidon listened, tilting his head to catch each delicate note. In that song, he sensed the flow of time itself, gentle, endless, moving in smooth currents. It spoke to him of journeys yet to come, of storms and calm alike, though he could not yet understand them fully. Even so, he felt a quiet thrill, a sense of possibility stretching before him like the endless horizon. Poseidon walked slowly along the shallow edge, where water and sand met in gentle blending. Each step left soft impressions that the waves almost immediately smoothed away. He felt the cool grains beneath his toes, fine and soft, like dusted pearls, and he listened to the rhythm of the surf brushing against them. The movement was soothing, a quiet, persistent reminder of continuity. In this place, the boundaries between land and sea felt gentle and forgiving, a space where curiosity could wander freely. Looking out across the horizon, he saw shapes forming in the distance, rocks and small islands emerging from the soft haze. The sunlight touched their edges with warm gold, and the water around them sparkled with delicate reflections. Poseidon felt a gentle yearning, a whisper of desire to explore the places the waves carried him. His heart moved with the rhythm of the sea, steady and calm, and he realized that he was beginning to understand his place. He was the pulse beneath these waters, the the quiet energy guiding them in subtle, unseen ways. As the day moved slowly onward, the wind changed its song slightly, carrying hints of unseen lands and distant rivers. Poseidon closed his eyes briefly, letting the soft air brush against his face. He imagined swimming beyond the horizon, discovering new depths and gentle mysteries. There was no rush, no urgency, only a gentle excitement, the sort that makes one linger in the softest of moments. Even in his first awakening, he felt the calm adventure of possibility, the quiet thrill of a world waiting patiently to be understood. By evening, the sky shifted into soft shades of lavender and rose. The sun dipped slowly, casting a gentle glow across the surface of the sea. Waves glimmered in quiet rhythms, whispering against rocks and sand. Poseidon rested upon a smooth stone, letting the water lap softly around him. He closed his eyes, listening to the lullaby of the sea, feeling its rhythm flow through him. He realized, with gentle clarity, that the world was not just around him. It was inside him as well, a quiet, endless part of his being. And as twilight settled, a soft current brushed his hand, carrying with it tiny flecks of light that sparkled like stars fallen into the water. Poseidon reached out, feeling a quiet wonder, a gentle anticipation of all that lay ahead. The sea hummed softly in response, like a secret promise, a whisper of journeys to come. The horizon glimmered with possibility, and Poseidon leaned back into the rhythm of the waves, letting them guide him gently into the unfolding night. Above him, the first stars reflected on the water's surface, tiny, twinkling lights that seemed almost alive. Poseidon smiled quietly to himself, feeling the gentle, steady pulse of life beneath the waves. And in that soft, timeless moment, he understood that his story, like the sea itself, would move slowly and endlessly, carrying him forward into mysteries he had yet to discover. The water closed softly around him, calm and embracing, and he let himself drift with its gentle rhythm, ready for the first true journey the sea would offer. The night spread slowly over the waters, soft and deep, like a blanket woven from shadows and stars. Poseidon drifted gently, letting the waves carry him, feeling their subtle push and pull, as if the sea itself was guiding his first steps into the wider world. The stars reflected in the water like tiny lanterns, each flickering with a quiet light that seemed to whisper stories of places he had not yet seen. The calmness was profound, wrapping around him like a gentle cloak, and yet beneath it, a tiny spark of curiosity nudged him forward. The next morning arrived slowly, pale light spilling across the horizon. The sea shimmered in soft shades of turquoise and silver, moving in quiet, endless rhythms. Poseidon rose from the gentle swell, feeling the water slip across his skin. Each ripple seemed alive, brushing him with delicate fingers, as though welcoming him into a day filled with soft discoveries. He felt the cool touch of morning currents and the warmth of sunlight breaking through clouds in lazy, golden beams. The combination made him feel serene yet aware, as if the world had paused just for him to take a deep breath and explore. He began to move along the water's edge, following the soft pull of the tides. Small creatures stir beneath the surface, tiny fish darting in flashes of silver, gentle swaying of underwater plants, and the slow glide of a distant turtle leaving subtle trails in the sand. Poseidon reached out a hand to the water, and with a gentle flick of his fingers, he found he could guide the tiny currents, nudging them to shimmer or twirl. It was not power in a harsh sense, but a quiet connection, a shared rhythm between himself and the life around him. The feeling filled him with a gentle delight, like the soft warmth of a sunbeam resting on his shoulder. Above the waves, the first seabirds began to sing. Their soft, trilling calls echoed across the water, bouncing off distant rocks and islands. Poseidon tilted his head to listen, marveling at the subtle harmonies in their voices. He imagined tracing their flight, following their paths over the water, and he realized the sea was a stage for gentle stories unfolding everywhere, quiet dramas of movement, dance, and song. He smiled softly, feeling the wonder of being both observer and participant in this endless, soothing play. As he swam, the sea seemed to respond to him in little, surprising ways. A current that had been slow and still suddenly picked up, carrying him forward with soft insistence. Tiny waves lapped at the rocks in playful arcs, spraying delicate mist that kissed his face. The scent of salt and cool seaweed filled the air, rich and grounding. Poseidon closed his eyes, letting the sensation sink into him. Each movement of the water was a gentle pulse, like a heartbeat shared between him and the world. In these quiet moments, he felt a deep, unspoken joy, a sense that he was part of something vast, beautiful, and calm. He noticed a small cove nestled between two low cliffs, the water smooth and sheltered, glimmering under the rising sun. Poseidon drifted there, allowing the gentle current to guide him. Tiny waves brushed softly along the shore, creating a soft, constant melody. The sand beneath his fingers was fine, almost silky, and the shells scattered along its edge shimmered with muted colors, washed smooth by countless tides. He reached down and let the water swirl through his hands, marveling at how alive it seemed, carrying stories from distant places far beyond his sight. The cove became a quiet sanctuary. Poseidon lingered, exploring the hidden spaces where small crabs scuttled across rocks and delicate sea anemones swayed in gentle rhythm. He touched the soft tendrils of the anemones, feeling their delicate pulse and subtle resistance. In these moments, he began to understand a gentle lesson. The sea was not merely water and waves. It was a living, breathing world. And he was waking slowly into a quiet awareness that he, too, belonged, moving within its rhythms as naturally as any creature. A soft breeze carried the distant scent of pine from the cliffs above, mingling with salt and damp sand. Poseidon lifted his face to it, breathing in slowly, savoring the combination of scents that felt at once foreign and familiar. He listened to the distant calls of seabirds and the whisper of the waves against rocks. Each sound, each touch, each scent built a delicate pattern of understanding in him, a map of gentle interactions that wove the sea, the land, and himself into a quiet unity. The world was not loud or urgent. It was soft, unfolding, waiting patiently to be discovered. Poseidon moved from the cove back into the open water, letting the currents guide him toward deeper, slower stretches. Beneath him, shadows of larger fish glided smoothly, their movements steady and deliberate. He traced their paths with soft curiosity, imagining the stories they carried in the deep. Even the smallest ripple in the water became a subtle conversation, and he found himself listening in silence, attuned to rhythms he could not yet name. The sea seemed infinite, a gentle maze of light, shadow, and quiet motion, inviting him to explore with slow, careful attention. In a small bay, he discovered his first interaction with creatures larger than himself. A family of dolphins rose gracefully, arcs of sleek bodies leaping above the water in rhythmic patterns. Poseidon moved with them, matching their gentle, rolling motions, feeling the warmth of their presence and the lightness of their playful energy. They brushed past him in soft nudges, curious but not hurried, and he mirrored their movements with delight. The dance was unspoken, a quiet understanding passing between them. He was part of the sea, and the sea was part of him. The day waned slowly, light turning soft and golden, spilling over the water and rocks. Poseidon paused to rest, floating with the gentle current. The waves brushed against him like a soft caress, carrying him effortlessly. The sky above deepened into a rich palette of lavender and rose, reflecting faintly on the surface of the water. As the first stars appeared, twinkling faintly, he felt a quiet wonder, a gentle anticipation of days to come. The sea held endless stories, and he was learning to listen to them, to move with their rhythm, and to delight in their subtle, unfolding beauty. As twilight deepened, Poseidon rested upon a smooth rock in the shallow water, letting the gentle waves lap softly against him. He looked out toward the horizon, where distant islands shimmered faintly in the fading light. A quiet excitement stirred, not of hurry or conflict, but of gentle curiosity, an awareness that the sea was vast and welcoming, and that he had many soft adventures ahead. Even as darkness wrapped the world in calm shadow, he felt a deep, soothing connection, as though the water itself was breathing with him, carrying him into the next chapter of his journey. The sea whispered softly, and Poseidon listened, his heart attuned to its rhythm. Each wave, each ripple, each distant call of a creature was a gentle invitation. He let the water guide him, letting the current carry both his body and his quiet wonder forward, into a world full of soft mysteries, calm explorations, and endless gentle stories waiting just beyond the horizon. The morning light arrived slowly over the horizon, brushing soft gold across the gentle waves. Poseidon drifted in the quiet water, feeling the faint push of the current beneath him, a gentle reminder of the sea's ceaseless rhythm. Today, he felt a subtle pull, a curiosity that drew him downward, beneath the surface where sunlight faded into softer shades of blue and green. The water grew cooler as he descended, brushing against his skin like a soft, whispering veil, and he felt a quiet thrill at exploring a part of the world that few had ever seen. Beneath the gentle sway of the waves, the sea unfolded like a living tapestry. Small schools of fish shimmered in delicate arcs, their scales catching what little light filtered from above. Plants swayed in slow, hypnotic dances, their fronds brushing against one another in gentle greetings. The scent of deep water, slightly earthy, faintly sweet, filled Poseidon's senses, and he inhaled it slowly, savoring the newness of this quiet realm. Every movement stirred ripples that traveled softly through the water, whispering across the sandy floor and hidden rock formations. As he moved deeper, Poseidon discovered small caves and grottos, their entrances dark yet inviting. He floated near one, peering into its shadowed interior. The darkness was not frightening. It was a soft, velvety quiet, like the hush before a lullaby begins. Tiny luminescent creatures glimmered faintly within, casting gentle reflections against the cave walls. Poseidon reached out, letting his hand brush through the water. The light shifted softly, sparkling along his fingers in delicate, fleeting patterns. He marveled at the gentle beauty of the hidden world, quiet wonder stirring in his heart. A slow current guided him along the uneven floor, carrying him past smooth stones and soft sand. Tiny crabs scuttled along the rocks, their movements careful and deliberate. He watched them with a calm fascination, imagining the delicate patterns of their lives unfolding in the quiet dark. Above, faint shafts of light broke through cracks in the surface, illuminating the water in soft, dancing streaks. Poseidon moved through these beams, letting the light kiss his skin and fill him with warmth. He felt a subtle joy in the interplay of shadow and light, of mystery and revelation, as if the sea itself were teaching him its quiet secrets. In one hidden hollow, he found a small, gently flowing spring bubbling from the rock. The water was crystal clear, cooler than the surrounding sea, and it carried a faint, sweet scent of minerals. Poseidon cupped it in his hands, letting it spill through his fingers. It felt alive, a delicate pulse beneath his skin. He rested there, feeling the soft energy of the spring mingle with his own, and for the first time, he sensed the subtle connection between himself and the hidden life of the sea. Every current, every tiny creature, every swirl of sand seemed to whisper in harmony with him, a gentle chorus of belonging. As he explored, he encountered creatures larger than any he had seen near the surface. A slow, graceful stingray glided past, wings extended in quiet elegance, and Poseidon followed it with soft, deliberate movements. Nearby, a school of gentle, silver-scaled fish moved as one, undulating like a living ribbon through the water. He reached out a hand, feeling the soft brush of their fins against his skin. The touch was light, almost ticklish, and he laughed quietly to himself, delighted by the sensation. The water around him rippled with gentle energy, echoing the soft joy he felt in these quiet interactions. The deeper he went, the quieter the world became, yet it was alive in subtle ways. Tiny sea snails left delicate trails along the rocks. Fronds of seaweed swayed with each subtle current, brushing against one another with soft whispers. Poseidon floated slowly, letting his fingers graze the sand and rocks, feeling the textures, the temperatures, the gentle resistance of the water. Each detail, small and precise, carried a quiet fascination. He realized that the sea was filled with endless patterns of beauty, all moving in subtle rhythms that required patience to notice. At the bottom of one gentle slope, he discovered a hidden garden of coral. The formations rose like small towers, soft pastels glowing faintly in the filtered light. Tiny creatures nestled among the branches, their colors vibrant against the muted backdrop. Poseidon moved carefully through the garden, letting the water carry him along the edges. He marveled at the patterns, the delicate arcs and spirals of the coral, each shape carefully formed by the quiet work of unseen hands. A soft feeling of reverence settled over him. He understood that this hidden world was fragile, delicate, and deserving of gentle care. Time passed slowly in the quiet depths. Poseidon rested in small pockets of calm, letting the water envelope him like a soft blanket. He listened to the subtle hum of the currents, the faint scrape of sand against stone, the whisper of tiny creatures moving in rhythm with the water. Each sound, each motion, was part of a larger melody, a song of life that pulsed quietly beneath the waves. He closed his eyes, feeling the rhythm seep into him, steady and soothing, like the soft beating of a drum in a lullaby. As evening approached, a subtle light shifted through the water, soft and golden from the setting sun above. Poseidon rose slowly toward the surface, feeling the warmer currents brush against his skin. He paused briefly, looking back toward the hidden depths he had explored. They glimmered faintly, mysterious and inviting, promising new discoveries and gentle adventures yet to come. He felt a quiet anticipation, a gentle curiosity that hummed softly in his chest, knowing that he would return again and again to uncover the secret rhythms of the sea. Breaking through the water, he was greeted by the soft kiss of a cool evening breeze. The waves lapped gently against rocks, carrying the faint scent of salt and distant pine. Poseidon rested on a smooth stone, letting the water ripple around him, reflecting the faint glow of twilight across his hair and shoulders. Above, the first stars shimmered, delicate points of light mirrored in the calm sea. A gentle peace settled over him, a quiet satisfaction in the soft knowledge that the hidden world below was alive, welcoming, and endlessly beautiful. And as the stars multiplied, their light scattered across the gentle waves, Poseidon felt a quiet sense of purpose stir within him. He was beginning to understand that the sea was not just a place to wander. It was a living, breathing world that needed care, attention, and understanding. With each gentle ripple, each soft current, he felt the stirrings of responsibility and quiet wonder mingling together, ready to guide him into the adventures of the days to come. The horizon glimmered faintly in the last light of evening, inviting him forward, whispering soft possibilities. Poseidon leaned back into the gentle embrace of the waves, letting them carry him slowly, thoughtfully, into the next chapter of discovery. The hidden depths had opened a new world, full of gentle mysteries and quiet stories, and he knew that this calm, patient exploration was only the beginning. The sea in the early morning was a quiet, undulating expanse, soft as velvet beneath Poseidon's touch. The horizon glimmered faintly, the first light of day spilling in gentle streaks of pink and gold across the waves. Poseidon floated just beneath the surface, feeling the water slide around him, listening to its quiet murmur. Today, something subtle hummed within him, a delicate stirring he had not noticed before, a gentle energy, not loud or forceful, but persistent, as if the water itself were calling softly to him. He reached out a hand, letting his fingers trail through the current. The water responded with a slight ripple, brushing against him in ways that felt unusually alive. He lifted his hand again, imagining a small circle of waves moving in a gentle loop. To his quiet surprise, the water obeyed, curling softly around itself in smooth circular motions. Poseidon paused, marveling at the sensation. The currents were responding not just to the wind or tide, but to him. It was subtle, tender, like a conversation in slow motion, and it filled him with soft wonder. The morning light glimmered across the rippling water, scattering patterns of gold and silver along his face and shoulders. Poseidon swam slowly, letting the gentle current follow him, feeling its soft push and pull. He experimented with small motions, curling waves lightly around floating leaves, nudging a school of fish into soft arcs, guiding tiny swirls of sand along the bottom. Each movement was gentle, almost imperceptible, and yet deeply satisfying. The power was not abrupt or loud. It was quiet, as natural as breathing, and it brought a subtle thrill he could not yet fully name. Above him, the soft cries of seabirds echoed across the water, mixing with the whisper of the tide against smooth rocks. Poseidon watched as a few gulls skimmed the waves, their reflections flickering gently across the surface. With a small thought, he nudged a passing current, causing a ripple that shimmered beneath their feet. The birds adjusted slightly, rising and falling with a new rhythm of the water, and he laughed quietly to himself, delighted by the subtle interaction. The power felt alive, not just in the water, but in the small, gentle ways it connected all life. He moved toward a quiet cove, where shallow water brushed soft sand and stones. Small shells lay scattered along the bottom, smooth and warm from the sun. Poseidon lifted them gently with the currents, letting them float in delicate arcs before settling them back down. Tiny crabs scuttled over the sand, pausing to inspect the gentle dance of shells and ripples. He smiled softly, feeling the calm joy of shaping movement without forcing it, simply guiding it, letting the water respond to his quiet intentions. The sea felt like an extension of himself, and he marveled at the subtle harmony between his own rhythm and the rhythm of the waves. As he swam deeper, the water darkened slightly, soft greens and blues blending together in gentle gradients. The creatures of the depths moved around him, curious but unhurried. Poseidon discovered he could lift small streams of water, letting them coil around rocks in slow, elegant loops. Tiny fish follow the motion, swimming through the spirals as if dancing in invisible ribbons. He laughed softly again, the sound muffled and gentle beneath the surface. The feeling of guiding the water, of communicating through its soft movements, brought a tender sense of purpose. A subtle current carried him toward a deeper channel, where the seabed dropped into quiet shadow. Here, he found a cluster of tall, waving plants that brushed softly against his arms as he passed. He reached out, and the plants seemed to respond, bending and curling as if in slow, deliberate greeting. The water around him pulsed lightly, reflecting the delicate interaction. Poseidon realized that the power he felt was not just about moving water. It was about listening, responding, and participating in the life of the sea. Each ripple, each swirl, each gentle push or pull was a way to understand and connect. He lingered in the deeper channel for a long while, letting the currents coil and unwind around him. Small schools of fish traced the gentle spirals, weaving patterns that glimmered faintly in the filtered light. Poseidon experimented with soft waves that moved like ribbons across the sand, guiding them carefully without breaking their natural flow. The feeling was serene, meditative, like a slow dance with the very essence of the sea. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the water wrap around him, feeling the soft, constant pulse beneath his skin. Time passed in quiet, measured moments. Poseidon began to sense the sea's moods in subtle ways. The pull of incoming tides, the gentle push of a distant current, the quiet stirrings of hidden creatures beneath rocks. He realized that the sea spoke not in words but in motion, in rhythm, in delicate, flowing gestures. And he could listen. More than that, he could respond, guiding and shaping in small, gentle ways, without harshness or disruption. The discovery brought a gentle thrill, a soft, glowing warmth that settled in his chest. As the afternoon light warmed the shallow waters, Poseidon moved toward the surface once more. The sky reflected in smooth, golden waves, and the breeze carried the soft scent of salt and distant pine. He let the currents lift him gently, feeling the familiar push of the tides as he rose. Above him, a few dolphins leaped in graceful arcs, their smooth bodies skimming the water. With a soft gesture, he nudged the current beneath them, and they responded with playful spins and dives. Poseidon laughed quietly, the sound carried lightly on the wind, blending with the gentle music of the waves. The sun began to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in soft hues of lavender and rose. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock, letting the water swirl around him in delicate ripples. He felt a quiet sense of connection, a gentle awareness that the sea and he were not separate, but intertwined. The subtle power within him was still new, still gentle, but it hummed softly, like a lullaby promising many discoveries ahead. As he leaned back and watched the first stars shimmer faintly in the water's reflection, he felt anticipation in his chest, not of hurry or conflict, but of quiet curiosity. Tomorrow, the sea will hold new mysteries. Gentle currents would carry new whispers, and hidden places beneath the waves would invite him to explore further. Poseidon closed his eyes, feeling the gentle embrace of the water around him, soft and protective. The rhythm of the waves, the pulsing currents, the quiet songs of hidden creatures, all of it swirled gently together, wrapping him in the endless, soothing lullaby of the sea. And in that soft, timeless moment, he felt the quiet promise of gentle adventures yet to come. The morning air was soft and cool, carrying the faint scent of salt and distant flowers from the rocky cliffs. Poseidon floated lightly near the surface, feeling the gentle push of the tide as it moved in subtle, endless rhythms. The water shimmered beneath him in quiet patterns, reflecting pale sunlight in glimmering streaks of silver and gold. He breathed slowly, savoring the gentle flow of the sea, and felt a delicate anticipation stirring within him, a soft curiosity about what awaited below. Descending into the deeper waters, he noticed the faint shadows of larger creatures moving gracefully among the swaying plants and gentle currents. A school of silvery fish passed like ribbons, weaving and spinning in soft arcs. Poseidon reached out a hand, and a ripple followed his fingers. The fish altered their paths in response, creating spirals and loops that glimmered faintly in the filtered light. He smiled quietly, fascinated by the quiet conversations of movement, the subtle ways life could interact without words. Further down, the water cooled slightly, carrying the faint earthy scent of the seabed. Poseidon moved with care, letting the currents guide him toward shapes that glided with smooth, deliberate motion. A gentle sea turtle rose from the sandy floor, its shell catching dappled sunlight that filtered through the waves. Poseidon drifted alongside it, marveling at the slow, peaceful rhythm of its movement. The turtle glanced at him with quiet eyes, and he felt a soft connection, a mutual acknowledgement that they shared the same watery world. Nearby, a group of dolphins emerged, their sleek forms gliding effortlessly through the water. Poseidon mirrored their movements, letting the currents lift him and carry him in soft arcs. The dolphins nudged him gently, their playful spins and dives inviting him into a slow, harmonious dance. He laughed softly, a sound muffled by the water, but warm and bright in his chest. There was no hurry, no tension, only the quiet joy of moving together, discovering the rhythm of life beneath the waves. He followed the dolphins toward a gently sloping coral reef, where small, delicate fish flitted in and out of soft tunnels and crevices. The colors of the coral were muted yet luminous, soft pastels of pink, lavender, and pale gold. Poseidon moved carefully among the formations, brushing lightly against the water and guiding small currents to allow the fish safe passage. The reef seemed to respond to him, the currents flowing gently, almost like a sigh of welcome. Every movement brought a quiet delight, a sense of being deeply attuned to this vibrant, living world. As he explored, Poseidon encountered a school of larger, graceful rays gliding slowly along the sandy floor. Their wings stretched wide, almost floating in the water, and he followed their undulating motion with careful attention. With a gentle thought, he nudged the surrounding currents, helping guide a few stray fish safely past them. He marveled at the subtle balance of movement, the way every creature and current responded in quiet harmony. In these moments, he realized the power within him was not meant for force. It was meant for care, for guidance, for gentle stewardship of the sea. The deeper he went, the softer and quieter the world became, yet it remained full of life. Small crabs scuttled across rocks, leaving delicate trails in the sand. Sea anemones swayed gently, brushing against fronds of kelp that floated like green ribbons. Poseidon moved among them with patience, observing and learning the rhythm of each. He felt a deep satisfaction in this slow understanding, a gentle pride in discovering the ways he could interact without disturbing the delicate balance around him. A particularly calm stretch of water led him to a hidden underwater valley. The light here was faint, soft blues and greens blending in quiet gradients. Strange, luminous creatures floated past, their tiny bodies pulsing softly like flickering lanterns. Poseidon traced gentle arcs with his fingers, letting the light ripple through the currents. The creatures followed the movement, weaving delicate patterns around him. He marveled at the quiet beauty of it, feeling a warm, glowing connection with the life that surrounded him. Time moved slowly, and Poseidon noticed the way even subtle changes in the currents affected the entire environment. A small wave of motion could send sand swirling across the floor, carry seeds from one patch of coral to another, or guide a school of fish along a new path. He practiced small adjustments, learning the language of gentle influence, discovering that his presence could ripple through the sea without ever disturbing its quiet serenity. Each experiment brought new wonder, new soft delight. By late afternoon, Poseidon rose toward the surface once more, letting the gentle currents lift him. Above, the waves glimmered in golden light, and the wind brushed softly across the water. The dolphins played nearby, leaping and twirling, while the turtles drifted lazily along the edges of the reef. Poseidon paused, letting the warm sunlight kiss his skin and listening to the soft harmony of life around him. The world felt endless, calm, and safe, a place where curiosity and gentle care could flourish. As evening approached, the sky shifted to soft shades of rose and lavender, reflected faintly across the rippling water. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock, letting the water swirl lightly around him. The gentle pulsing of currents, the soft calls of distant birds, and the quiet motions of unseen creatures all combined into a soothing lullaby. He felt a quiet sense of fulfillment, knowing that the sea held countless wonders, each waiting for him to explore with patience, attention, and gentle guidance. And as the first stars reflected on the calm surface, Poseidon closed his eyes briefly, feeling the subtle hum of power within him, a quiet, guiding force that flowed with the rhythms of the sea. The day had been filled with gentle discoveries, soft interactions, and a deepening understanding of his place in this living world. Tomorrow, he sensed, would hold new surprises and even more delicate adventures, waiting just beyond the horizon. The water lapped softly against him, a gentle, endless rhythm, and Poseidon let himself drift with it, carried forward into the mysteries of the deeper, hidden sea. The dawn arrived gently, spilling pale gold across the quiet waves. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the soft touch of the water embrace him like a familiar friend. The morning breeze carried a faint scent of salt and distant flowers from hidden cliffs, and the sun's light shimmered along the gentle undulations of the waves. Today, he felt a subtle pull, an invitation to explore not just the creatures of the sea, but the currents themselves, the invisible threads that guided the water in endless, graceful loops. Descending slowly, he let the cool water wrap around him, carrying him deeper into the calm rhythm beneath the waves. Small schools of fish darted past in soft arcs, reflecting the gentle sunlight that filtered through from above. Poseidon reached out, letting his fingers trail along the current. He felt it shift subtly, as if acknowledging his presence, responding not to force but to attention. Each small motion created ripples that traveled quietly, brushing against sand and stone, gliding past coral and plants. It was a conversation without words, a soft dialogue of water and life. He explored a gentle bend in the seabed, where the currents flowed like slow, rolling ribbons. The water swirled around smooth rocks and clumps of kelp, brushing gently against Poseidon's skin. He stretched out a hand and nudged a small eddy, sending it curling in soft spirals around a patch of coral. Tiny fish swam through the loop, tracing delicate arcs as if dancing in slow motion. Poseidon smiled quietly, marveling at the subtle magic of guiding the water, not by force, but by understanding its quiet rhythm. Above him, a few gulls called softly, their cries blending with the gentle hum of the waves. A school of dolphins passed nearby, their sleek bodies slicing through the water with effortless grace. Poseidon let the currents lift him gently, gliding alongside them. The dolphins nudged him lightly in playful arcs, and he responded with small, careful movements, letting the water carry him in harmonious circles. The gentle dance left a trail of tiny ripples, sparkling faintly in the sunlit water, a quiet signature of their shared moment. As he moved deeper, the currents shifted in subtle patterns. Small whirlpools formed around clusters of rocks, swirling gently like spinning ribbons. Poseidon reached out, feeling the soft pulse of the water, tracing paths that twisted and turned with gentle guidance. Tiny sea creatures followed the patterns, weaving through the slow spirals with delicate precision. Each movement was a quiet, shared understanding, a slow choreography that flowed naturally, requiring only attention, patience, and care. In a hidden cove, he found an area where tides met in gentle convergence. The currents collided softly, creating faint eddies that swirled in slow, hypnotic rhythms. Poseidon floated there, letting the motion guide his hands. As he moved, he noticed the currents responding in subtle ways. Tiny whirl forming where he nudged, a soft ripple flowing past a patch of sand. It was as though the water itself was alive with small gestures, communicating through motion, responding to his curiosity with gentle, quiet acknowledgement. He explored further, tracing delicate pathways along the seabed. A soft hum of energy seemed to pulse beneath his hands, carried in the ebb and flow of the tides. Poseidon realized he could sense more than the motion of the water. He could feel its moods, its quiet inclinations. A current might be playful and buoyant, another patient and slow, and still another secretive, curling gently around rocks as if hiding in quiet reflection. Each one held a subtle personality, and he felt a tender joy in discovering them. A small ray glided past, wings extended in gentle arcs. Poseidon followed its path, letting the surrounding water curve and ripple softly, guiding the ray through a slow, careful dance. The motion was hypnotic, meditative, and it seemed to echo through the valley of coral and sand. Tiny fish scattered gently, tracing the arcs in their own delicate patterns. Poseidon marveled at the harmony, feeling a growing understanding of the quiet relationships between creatures and currents, the way energy flowed naturally when met with attention and care. As the afternoon sun warmed the shallows, Poseidon rose slowly toward the surface, letting the currents carry him with soft, patient guidance. Above, the sky reflected in gentle gold and silver streaks on the water. Dolphins leapt in graceful arcs nearby, tracing the curves of waves that he had guided in tiny, playful spirals. The water shimmered around him, alive with subtle patterns and delicate interactions. Each movement felt like a quiet story unfolding, a tale told not with words, but with rhythm, flow, and gentle intention. In a small, sheltered bay, he rested on a smooth rock, letting the water curl gently around his hands. He watched the currents moving across the sand and stones, guiding tiny ripples as they flowed past hidden coral and swaying plants. The quiet pulse of the sea matched the slow rhythm of his breathing. He felt a deep sense of belonging, a gentle awareness that the world beneath the waves was alive in ways subtle and endless, and that he was part of that endless, soft music. As twilight approached, the sky shifted to delicate shades of lavender and rose. Poseidon floated on the surface, letting the calm waves cradle him. The gentle whispers of the currents carried faint reflections of starlight, soft and glimmering, and he felt the pulse of quiet energy within himself and the sea. There was no hurry, no urgency, only a deep, gentle rhythm that connected him to every creature, every ripple, every hidden passage beneath the water. And as the first stars shimmered faintly above, Poseidon leaned back, letting the currents lift him in slow, soothing arcs. He closed his eyes, feeling the subtle, quiet magic of the sea moving through him. Tomorrow, he sensed, would bring more whispers of hidden tides, gentle storms, and currents yet unseen, inviting him to explore the depths and discover even softer, more intricate rhythms. The water hummed quietly around him, embracing him in its endless, gentle motion, carrying him forward into the calm mysteries that awaited in the next chapter of his journey. The morning dawned quietly, pale light spilling across the rippling waves. Poseidon floated near the surface, feeling the soft rise and fall of the water beneath him. The air carried a faint, salty scent, mixed with the delicate perfume of distant flowers growing along hidden cliffs. The sun shimmered gently on the wave crests, casting streaks of gold and silver across the water. Today, Poseidon felt a gentle stirring within himself, an anticipation that moved through him like a whisper along the currents, a soft curiosity about the forces of the sea that could shift and shape with subtle intention. He swam slowly toward a sheltered cove, where the water deepened and currents wove together in intricate patterns. Small fish darted past, their silvery bodies flickering in the soft sunlight, while plants swayed gracefully in the gentle ebb and flow. Poseidon extended a hand, letting the water coil lightly around his fingers. A faint ripple spread outward, brushing against coral and stones in quiet arcs. He marveled at how even a subtle motion could set a soft chain of events into motion, a delicate dance of water, light, and life. As the day moved on, the wind shifted slightly, brushing across the surface of the waves in slow, teasing gusts. Poseidon felt the currents respond, stirring with new energy. He traced patterns in the water, letting the flow curve gently around rocks and islands. Tiny eddies spiraled softly, guiding small fish in playful loops. He laughed quietly, enchanted by the subtle interplay of wind and water. It was a gentle, natural dance, and he realized that he could influence these movements without ever disturbing the delicate balance of the sea. In a deeper stretch of water, he noticed small waves beginning to form, rising in gentle arcs. Poseidon dipped beneath them, letting the currents flow around him. With a soft thought, he guided the waves to curl and shimmer, tracing their curves in rhythmic, hypnotic patterns. The surface above caught the sunlight, scattering glimmers across the water like tiny lanterns. He followed each ripple with care, feeling the energy of the sea pulse lightly beneath his skin. It was a quiet, calming power, one that required attention and patience rather than force. A school of dolphins appeared nearby, leaping and twirling through the waves. Poseidon let the currents lift him alongside them, guiding small spirals of water that traced the paths of their playful arcs. The dolphins nudged him gently, their sleek bodies brushing against the soft waves. He mirrored their movements, moving in harmony with the tides, and felt a deep sense of connection. The gentle storms above were not frightening. They were alive with possibilities, subtle reminders of the natural rhythm that flowed through all living things in the sea. As afternoon approached, Poseidon noticed the clouds gathering lightly along the horizon. They moved slowly, brushing in muted shades of lavender and gray across the sky. The wind shifted more decisively, tugging softly at the surface of the waves. Poseidon let the currents respond to his touch, guiding small ripples and eddies with tender care. Tiny fish and creatures swam through the gentle swirls, moving as if dancing to a quiet, invisible song. He realized that the storms were not a threat. They were another part of the sea's delicate, living rhythm, and he could learn to shape them softly, in tune with a natural flow. In a sheltered bay, he experimented with guiding the rising tide. With careful, subtle motions, he encouraged small waves to swell and roll, brushing against rocks and sand in smooth, elegant arcs. The effect was not forceful, but harmonious. The waves followed his guidance without resistance, rising and falling in gentle synchronization. Poseidon felt a quiet thrill, a sense of wonder at the power that flowed within him, tempered by care and patience. Each swell, each ripple, each soft crest became a conversation, a dialogue with the living sea. The light shifted as evening approached, casting long, warm reflections across the water. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock near the cove, letting the gentle waves lap softly around him. A small school of rays glided past, their wings extended in elegant arcs, while tiny fish traced loops through the eddies he had guided earlier. The soft hum of currents, the whisper of wind, and the gentle motion of creatures all combined into a soothing melody. He leaned back into the water, closing his eyes, and felt the subtle pulse of quiet power flowing through him. Above him, the clouds moved more slowly now, tinged with gold and rose from the setting sun. The waves shimmered in gentle patterns, carrying the last light across the soft expanse of the sea. Poseidon felt the current swirl around him, tiny eddies brushing against his hands, and he realized that each movement, each gentle interaction, was a way of learning, of listening, of shaping the natural rhythm without disturbing its delicate balance. He understood, in this quiet, meditative moment, that patience and attention were as important as power itself. As twilight deepened, the first stars appeared, mirrored faintly in the water's calm surface. Poseidon rested, letting the sea cradle him in slow, soothing arcs. The wind carried the faint scent of distant flowers, the gentle hum of waves brushing against rocks, and the soft pulse of life moving beneath the surface. He felt a quiet excitement, not of urgency or conflict, but of gentle anticipation for the soft mysteries that awaited in the coming days. The sea, the winds, and the creatures were all alive with subtle rhythm, and he was learning to move within them, to guide them with care and tenderness. And as the first stars multiplied across the sky, reflecting like tiny lanterns on the water, Poseidon leaned back into the waves. He let the currents carry him slowly, feeling the quiet magic of tides and gentle storms pulsing through his being. Tomorrow, he sensed, would bring new challenges and softer adventures, waiting just beyond the horizon. And in the quiet, timeless moment of twilight, he let himself drift, cradled by the gentle, endless rhythm of the sea. The early morning arrived with a soft hush, sunlight spilling in delicate streaks across the calm water. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the gentle waves carry him slowly, rhythmically, as though the sea itself were breathing him forward. He inhaled deeply, tasting the subtle mixture of salt and distant blossoms carried by the breeze, and exhaled into the quiet morning. There was a soft anticipation in the currents, a gentle rhythm that invited him to explore deeper into the mysteries of the tides. He descended slowly, letting the water embrace him fully. The gentle push of currents guided him past swaying kelp forests and through soft tunnels of coral, where small fish moved in precise, rhythmic arcs. Poseidon reached out a hand, nudging a current slightly, and the water responded immediately, curling in soft, spiral patterns. Tiny creatures followed the movement, weaving through the ripples with delicate grace. It was a quiet dance, subtle and calming, a conversation of motion that required no words but full attention. A slight rise of the tide carried him toward a shallow bay, where waves lapped gently against smooth stones and soft sand. Poseidon experimented with the currents, guiding them in slow, elegant loops. Tiny shells shifted along the sand, tracing arcs and patterns as if the sea itself were composing a quiet, flowing song. The sun shimmered across the surface, scattering light in tiny ribbons that reflected faintly on Poseidon's skin. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction in shaping the movements of the water without disturbing its natural harmony. Nearby, a group of dolphins approached, their playful calls carrying faintly across the waves. Poseidon let the currents lift him alongside them, moving in rhythm with their graceful arcs. The dolphins nudged him gently, Weaving through spirals of water, he guided softly with his hands. He mirrored their movements, rolling and twisting with the ebbing tide, and the water responded in turn, creating a delicate choreography that rippled through the surrounding bay. The moment felt like a quiet celebration, a soft recognition of connection between himself, the sea, and its creatures. As the day progressed, Poseidon noticed the subtle differences in the currents, the slower, patient flows near the rocky edges, and the swift, rolling waves in the deeper channels. He let himself follow these natural rhythms, observing how tiny adjustments could ripple gently through the water, influencing the motion of fish, plants, and sand without ever disturbing their delicate balance. The currents seemed to respond almost like companions, following his attention rather than his force. With each small motion, he discovered new patterns, new dances hidden beneath the soft surface of the sea. In a secluded cove, he found a gentle convergence of tides. The water swirled in quiet eddies, small whirlpools spiraling around smooth stones and clusters of coral. Poseidon floated there, letting the currents brush lightly against his hands. He guided a few gentle swirls, watching his tiny fish follow the loops, tracing them with precision and grace. The sea seemed to hum softly, a quiet rhythm that matched the beating of his heart. In these moments, he felt a profound sense of belonging, a gentle knowledge that he and the sea were intertwined, moving together in delicate harmony. A slow-moving ray glided past, wings extended in graceful arcs. Poseidon guided it gently through a spiral of water, the current wrapping around it like a soft ribbon. Tiny fish followed, weaving in and out of the arcs with quiet curiosity. The dance continued for several moments, the motion hypnotic, calming, and deeply satisfying. Poseidon realized that the magic of the tides was not about control or dominance. It was about listening, guiding, and participating in the rhythm of life with care and attention. Above, the sun climbed higher, scattering faint golden light across the waves. Poseidon floated near the surface for a while, letting the warm touch of sunlight mix with the cool embrace of water. Small seabirds passed overhead, their quiet calls echoing softly across the bay. The tides moved beneath him, rolling and shifting in subtle patterns, and he felt the pulse of energy within himself respond to the currents. It was a soft, steady hum, a gentle reminder of the quiet power flowing through him and through the water. In the late afternoon, Poseidon explored a narrow channel where the tides met from opposite directions. The currents collided softly, creating delicate eddies and rolling waves. He guided them with careful motions, letting the water curve around rocks and coral, tracing arcs that shimmered in the fading light. Tiny creatures followed the movement naturally, swaying with the currents, twisting through the loops. He marveled at the harmony, the quiet precision, and the subtle beauty of these soft, living patterns. Each moment was a lesson in patience, attention, and gentle influence. As the sky shifted toward evening, soft hues of rose and lavender spread across the water. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock in the shallow bay, letting the water wrap around him in gentle ripples. The currents whispered quietly, brushing against his hands and arms, carrying the faint pulse of unseen life beneath the surface. He closed his eyes, feeling the rhythms of the tides, the quiet movement of creatures, and the subtle hum of power within him, all blending together into a soft, endless song. And as the first stars appeared, reflected in the calm water like tiny lanterns, Poseidon leaned back into the gentle embrace of the sea. He felt a quiet sense of anticipation, a gentle curiosity for the adventures and mysteries that lay in the tides yet to come. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring more patterns, more gentle dances, and more subtle discoveries in the soft, endless rhythm of the ocean. The sea carried him slowly, soothingly, as he drifted in quiet wonder, ready to follow its whispering currents into the next chapter of his journey. The morning light arrived softly, spilling gentle streaks of gold across the calm sea. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the water embrace him like a quiet friend. The air was filled with the faint scent of salt and distant flowers from hidden cliffs, mingling with the soft rhythm of the tide. Today, a subtle pull guided him toward a quieter, deeper part of the sea, a place he had glimpsed in the distance before, a stretch of water where shadows hinted at secret passages and hidden grottos waiting to be discovered. He descended slowly, letting the currents carry him gently downward. The water grew cooler as he moved deeper, brushing against his skin like soft velvet. Tiny fish flitted past, shimmering faintly in the filtered light that penetrated the surface. Poseidon reached out a hand, letting the water swirl softly around his fingers. The current seemed to respond, guiding him toward narrow entrances tucked beneath overhanging rocks. He marveled at the quiet elegance of these hidden spaces, the gentle mystery they held, and the delicate pulse of life that seemed to hum from within. One cave entrance was dark and shadowed, yet not frightening. It was soft and velvety, inviting him to explore slowly. Small bioluminescent creatures glimmered faintly along the walls, casting gentle, dancing light across smooth stone. Poseidon let his fingers brush against the surfaces, feeling the subtle textures and contours of the rocks. Tiny currents swirled gently around him, guiding his movements as if the cave itself were alive, welcoming him into its quiet depths. A soft sense of curiosity stirred within him, a gentle wonder at the hidden world waiting to be explored. Inside the grotto, the water moved in delicate, slow eddies. The walls curved gracefully, creating small alcoves where tiny fish and creatures sought shelter. Poseidon traced gentle paths with his hands, letting the currents respond to his touch. A few small crabs scuttled along the floor, leaving faint trails in the sand. He watched them with quiet fascination, noting the subtle interactions of life in this hidden place. Every movement, every ripple, felt like a small story unfolding in slow, gentle rhythms. As he ventured deeper, the grotto opened into a larger chamber where soft sand blanketed the floor. Light filtered faintly through cracks in the rock above, casting pale, dancing beams that illuminated the creatures within. A school of small, silver fish weaved through the shafts of light, tracing delicate patterns. Poseidon guided a gentle current, and the fish responded, moving in slow, harmonious loops. The scene was mesmerizing, a quiet ballet of motion, light, and life that filled him with soft joy and wonder. He explored another passage, where the walls were lined with smooth stones and delicate coral. Tiny anemones swayed gently in the water, brushing against feathery strands of seaweed. Poseidon let the currents carry him closer, observing how the plants and creatures moved with the flow. He realized that the grottos were alive not just with hidden beauty, but with subtle communication, a quiet network of motion and rhythm connecting all life within the walls. Each soft current he guided became part of this invisible dance, and he felt a gentle pride in learning to participate without disruption. Further inside, he discovered a small, gently flowing spring emerging from the rock. The water was crystal clear, cooler than the surrounding sea, carrying a faint, sweet scent of minerals. Poseidon cupped it in his hands, letting it spill through his fingers. It felt alive, pulsing softly against his skin. Tiny creatures hovered near the spring, drawn to its gentle energy. He lingered there, resting among the slow, rhythmic movements of water and life. The quiet of the grotto, the gentle glow of light, and the soft pulse of currents created a lullaby of calm, a rhythm he felt in every breath. Time seemed to stretch as he explored the hidden chambers. Small, luminescent creatures glimmered faintly along the walls, casting gentle reflections across the smooth stones. Poseidon moved slowly, letting the currents flow naturally, guiding eddies and ripples in gentle arcs. He marveled at the interplay of shadow, light, and motion, noticing the subtle ways each movement affected the creatures and plants around him. Each discovery brought a quiet sense of delight, a soft curiosity that urged him to explore further. In one deeper chamber, he found a quiet pool where the water was still, reflecting faint light in shimmering patterns. Poseidon floated above it, letting the currents ripple gently beneath his hands. Tiny fish moved in slow, measured loops, and a soft hum of energy seemed to pulse through the pool. He closed his eyes briefly, feeling the subtle magic of this hidden place, the way currents and creatures, light and stone, all moved together in delicate harmony. It was a calm, endless rhythm, and he felt a profound sense of belonging. As the afternoon sun shifted, faint light filtered through cracks above, scattering golden and silver reflections across the grotto. Poseidon drifted slowly toward the exit, letting the currents carry him with gentle arcs. The grotto seemed to bid him farewell softly, the water brushing against him as if acknowledging his presence. He paused at the entrance, looking back at the hidden chambers, knowing that they held endless quiet mysteries waiting for him to return. Breaking through the surface, he was greeted by the soft caress of a gentle breeze. The waves lapped quietly against rocks, reflecting the fading light of day. Poseidon rested on a smooth stone, letting the water ripple around him, and felt a deep, calming satisfaction. The hidden grottos had opened a new world, full of gentle secrets, soft rhythms, and quiet stories. He knew that these calm, protected spaces were a part of the sea's larger, living heart, and he felt a tender curiosity to explore even more tomorrow. And as the first stars appeared faintly above, mirrored in the soft surface of the water, Poseidon let himself drift with the gentle waves, carried by the endless, soothing rhythm of the sea. He felt a quiet anticipation, knowing the hidden chambers below and the currents above were only the beginning of his soft, patient adventures in the deep. The morning light was pale, soft, and gentle, spilling across the calm waves in thin streaks of gold. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the water cradle him like a quiet, familiar friend. The air carried the faint scent of salt and distant blooms, drifting from hidden cliffs and warm sands far along the coastline. Today, the currents felt particularly tender, moving with a gentle insistence that drew him toward the deeper reaches of the sea, toward places where shadows softened and light danced in delicate, mysterious ways. Descending slowly, Poseidon let the cooler, denser water wrap around him, its touch velvety and soothing. Tiny schools of fish shimmered in the filtered sunlight, moving in coordinated, slow loops. He reached out a hand, tracing the currents, and watched with quiet fascination as the water curled gently around his fingers, bending to his soft intention. Each subtle ripple seemed alive, responding to his presence with a faint pulse of acknowledgement, as if the ocean itself were beginning to recognize him. He ventured toward a stretch of the seafloor he had never fully explored, where gentle slopes of coral rose like smooth, soft mountains beneath the waves. Tiny creatures clung to the surfaces, starfish pressed their soft arms to the rock, small crabs moved delicately along hidden paths, and translucent shrimp shimmered faintly as they scuttled in and out of tiny crevices. Poseidon let the currents lift him gently, tracing slow arcs through the water, guiding small spirals to help the creatures move safely. It was a quiet, careful dance, delicate and tender, a conversation of motion and intent that required patience, attention, and gentleness. Deeper still, the water darkened, taking on shades of soft sapphire and muted teal. Here, faint lights began to glimmer, tiny luminescent creatures moving with quiet rhythm. They pulsed softly, like slow flickers of candlelight under the surface. Poseidon's eyes widened gently, and a soft smile formed on his lips. He extended a hand, letting the currents guide a few of the glowing beings into gentle arcs. They followed willingly, creating intricate, slow spirals of faint light that shimmered across the rocks and sand. The effect was mesmerizing, a soft, hypnotic glow that filled the quiet depths with calm wonder. The currents whispered around him as he moved, shifting in subtle waves. Poseidon realized for the first time that he could influence them gently, not through force or haste, but through patient, tender attention. He guided the small pulses of light through delicate loops, watching as tiny fish followed in quiet arcs. Crabs and anemones responded to the subtle changes in water flow, moving along paths that seemed to harmonize with his soft gestures. Every movement, every pulse, every faint ripple became part of an intricate living rhythm, a slow and beautiful song of the ocean itself. In one narrow canyon, he discovered a dense cluster of glowing jellyfish, their translucent bodies drifting slowly in the gentle currents. Poseidon approached carefully, letting the surrounding water form soft arcs and spirals to accommodate their delicate forms. The jellyfish pulsed gently in response, their luminescence growing faintly brighter as they moved with the flowing currents he guided. He marveled at the quiet intelligence of the sea, the way life moved with a rhythm that was both natural and responsive, like an unspoken conversation between creatures, currents, and the unseen pulse of the water itself. A faint breeze from the surface drifted downward through the channel, bringing with it the soft scent of salt and distant flowers. Poseidon let the currents guide him slowly upward, tracing gentle spirals through the canyon, following the faintly glowing creatures as they drifted. He experimented with small motions, nudging a current slightly here, lifting a soft eddy there, and watched in quiet delight as the creatures followed naturally, responding to his touch as if they understood the gentle language of guidance. Every motion was soft, unhurried, patient, a meditation of connection between him and the living, breathing ocean around him. In a secluded grotto, faint beams of sunlight filtered through cracks in the rock above, casting soft reflections across the water. Poseidon rested briefly, letting the current swirl gently around him, carrying tiny fish and floating particles in slow, mesmerizing arcs. A cluster of small, glowing plankton drifted past, their light flickering like distant stars. He guided them into spirals, moving carefully, shaping the currents without force. The plankton responded with gentle dances, swirling through eddies that shimmered faintly, casting luminous patterns across the grotto walls. The beauty of it filled him with quiet joy, a calm awe at the subtle magic of life beneath the waves. As he explored further, he discovered small, hidden alcoves where light barely penetrated. Here, the luminescent creatures moved more slowly, pulsing softly in rhythmic patterns that seemed almost like gentle breathing. Poseidon let the currents carry him in careful loops, tracing slow spirals with his hands. Tiny crabs and fish followed the arcs, moving in sync with the delicate dance of light. The experience was calming, meditative, almost hypnotic. He realized that the deeper he went, the more he could feel the heartbeat of the sea, the quiet pulse of life that connected every creature, plant, and wave. A small opening in the cavern wall led to an even deeper chamber, where the water shimmered with faint blues and soft greens. Poseidon entered slowly, letting the water flow around him like a soothing cloak. He noticed tiny schools of fish that moved in perfect harmony with the gentle currents, weaving in arcs and spirals around smooth stones. A soft current brushed against his arms and shoulders, carrying a faint, musical hum that seemed to echo from the depths themselves. Poseidon traced the paths of the currents with his fingers, feeling the subtle energy of the water, guiding it with gentle intention. Time seemed to slow as he moved deeper into the chamber. Small, bioluminescent creatures pulsed in rhythm with the water, creating faint patterns of light across the smooth sand and coral. Poseidon traced delicate arcs through the currents, guiding the creatures in slow, intricate loops. He observed how even the tiniest motion could ripple through the water, influencing the soft paths of fish and plankton alike. The quiet, hypnotic interplay of currents and creatures filled him with a sense of wonder that was almost sacred, a gentle reminder of the subtle power he carried and the patience it required to wield it softly. In one corner, he found a small fissure where water trickled gently from the rocks above, carrying a faint, sweet scent of minerals and sea flora. Poseidon cupped the flow in his hands, letting it spill through his fingers in soft streams. Tiny glowing organisms followed the trickle, drifting in gentle arcs. He experimented with slight shifts in the current, guiding them carefully through the small space. The creatures responded in kind, weaving and twirling in a quiet, harmonious dance. The chamber felt alive, a delicate ecosystem that pulsed in gentle, flowing rhythms, and he marveled at the soft harmony of it all. As the day waned, Poseidon began to ascend, letting the gentle currents carry him back toward the lighter waters closer to the surface. The luminescent creatures drifted behind him in soft trails of glowing arcs, and tiny fish followed the arcs of currents he had shaped along the way. The deeper chambers receded behind him, shadowed and mysterious, yet alive with quiet magic. He felt a deep sense of calm satisfaction, a gentle pride in understanding the subtle interplay of currents, creatures, and light. Every motion, every ripple, every soft pulse had been a quiet story of connection, a lullaby of the living sea. Breaking through the surface, he was greeted by the warm, golden glow of late afternoon sunlight. The gentle waves lapped against him softly, and a faint breeze carried the scent of salt and distant flowers. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock, letting the water swirl quietly around him. He closed his eyes briefly, feeling the faint hum of energy pulsing beneath his skin and through the water. The luminescent depths had revealed the first hints of the subtle influence he could have, not through force, but through careful attention, guidance, and gentle care. As twilight fell, the sky painted itself in soft shades of lavender and rose. The surface of the water reflected faint, trembling glimmers of fading light. Poseidon leaned back into the gentle embrace of the sea, letting the currents carry him slowly. The first stars appeared above, mirrored faintly in the calm waves. A soft, quiet sense of anticipation stirred within him. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring further adventures, more delicate discoveries, and an ever-growing understanding of the quiet, powerful rhythm of the living ocean. And as he drifted gently in the waves, carried by soft, whispering currents, Poseidon allowed himself to rest, fully immersed in the endless, calming magic of the luminescent depths, a serene, luminous world where patience, care, and gentle guidance revealed their quiet wonders. The morning unfolded slowly, soft light spilling across the calm waves. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the water cradle him with gentle undulations. The air carried the faint scent of salt and distant flowers from hidden cliffs, mingling with the quiet rhythm of the tide. He took a deep, calm breath, feeling the gentle pulse of the currents beneath him. Today, he was drawn to subtler parts of the sea, hidden channels and soft flows that whispered secrets in ways only patience and attention could reveal. Descending slowly, he let the cooler, denser water envelop him. Tiny fish shimmered as they passed, weaving in slow, coordinated arcs. Poseidon extended a hand, tracing faint ripples through the currents, and felt them respond as if acknowledging his presence. Each movement created soft spirals and eddies, guiding creatures and floating particles along gentle paths. It was a quiet conversation, one conducted entirely through rhythm, motion, and awareness. He glided toward a narrow channel tucked between smooth underwater cliffs. The passage was dimly lit, light filtering softly through cracks above, casting muted patterns across the rocks. Tiny currents twisted through the space in slow, intricate loops. Poseidon moved with care, letting the water guide his motion while he traced arcs with his hands. Tiny creatures, fish, and translucent shrimp followed the currents, moving gracefully as if dancing to a quiet, hidden song. Every ripple was a note, every eddy a melody in the ocean's soft symphony. In one alcove, he discovered a small congregation of delicate anemones swaying gently in the current. Poseidon allowed a slow wave to pass through the cluster, feeling the soft pull of the water as the creatures bent in unison. He guided a faint spiral around them, and tiny fish followed in precise, unhurried loops. The motion was hypnotic, calming, and full of gentle wonder. He realized that these hidden currents were alive with subtle communication, a quiet network connecting the creatures, the rocks, and the flowing water itself. A small group of dolphins appeared nearby, gliding effortlessly along the currents he was exploring. Poseidon mirrored their movements, letting the currents lift him in soft arcs. The dolphins nudged him gently, weaving through spirals of water he guided with tender care. The interplay of motion felt almost musical, a quiet harmony of energy, water, and life. Each glide, each twist, each ripple was part of a slow, unfolding story that only the patient and attentive could witness. Further along the passage, he discovered a hidden grotto where water flowed in slow, gentle eddies. Soft light filtered in from a narrow opening above, illuminating small, luminescent creatures that pulsed faintly in rhythmic patterns. Poseidon guided them in arcs and spirals, watching them drift through the eddies with perfect grace. Tiny fish followed their paths, weaving delicate loops, and even the soft sway of plants seemed to respond to the gentle currents. The chamber was alive with subtle motion, and he felt a profound sense of calm, a quiet understanding of how living things moved in harmony with the rhythms of water. He ventured deeper, tracing faint channels that curved around rocks and through small tunnels. Each motion required patience. Every adjustment of a current had to be soft, careful, and deliberate. The tiniest misstep could disturb the delicate balance, but with attention, he found that he could create gentle spirals and loops that enhanced the natural flow. Tiny crabs scuttled across smooth stones, their movement guided subtly by the currents. Small schools of fish followed faint arcs, tracing patterns like living ribbons of silver. In one quiet chamber, he discovered a soft, narrow spring seeping from the rock above. The water was clear and cool, carrying a faint sweetness of minerals. Poseidon cupped it in his hands, letting it trickle through his fingers in thin, delicate streams. Tiny luminescent creatures drifted along with the flow, and he guided the water into gentle spirals that traced intricate patterns along the sand. The soft, pulsing light from the creatures shimmered across the chamber, creating a tranquil, mesmerizing glow. He lingered there, resting among the calm energy, sensing the quiet pulse of life connecting every element. As he explored, Poseidon began to notice faint variations in the currents, the slower, patient flows near the rocky walls, and the faster, rolling arcs deeper in the passage. He let himself follow these patterns, observing how tiny adjustments rippled outward, influencing fish, plants, and particles in subtle, harmonious ways. Each ripple, each spiral, each gentle wave was a small conversation with the living sea, a story told without words, full of calm understanding and quiet connection. A school of small rays drifted past, their wings extended gracefully, moving in arcs through the currents he guided. Poseidon traced soft spirals with his fingers, and the rays followed naturally, their motion elegant and unhurried. Tiny fish darted in and out of the eddies, weaving around the rays in a delicate dance. He felt a gentle warmth in his chest, a quiet pride in learning to guide the sea without imposing force, letting its natural rhythms shape the motion instead. Time passed slowly in the quiet passageways, and the dim light shifted as the day waned. Soft blues and greens reflected across smooth stones and sand, mingling with the faint glow of bioluminescent creatures. Poseidon floated with the currents, tracing spirals and eddies, observing the delicate interplay of life and water. Every motion seemed to echo softly through the passage, carrying the quiet magic of the hidden depths. He felt an increasing awareness of his ability to influence, guide, and harmonize with the living rhythms of the ocean without ever disturbing its fragile balance. As evening approached, the currents carried him toward a wider chamber where soft beams of fading sunlight filtered through cracks above. Tiny creatures shimmered in arcs of luminescent light, and small schools of fish traced delicate loops through gentle eddies. Poseidon guided the currents softly, lifting and curling the water in slow, hypnotic motions. The chamber seemed to breathe with him, pulsing gently in response to his attention and care. Each motion became part of the quiet symphony of water, life, and subtle energy, a song that required only patience and gentle guidance to hear. Breaking toward the surface, Poseidon rose slowly, letting the currents carry him upward. The waves above shimmered faintly in the fading light, reflecting gold, rose, and lavender streaks across the calm expanse of the sea. He rested on a smooth rock, letting the water ripple softly around him. The quiet magic of the hidden currents and passages had deepened his understanding of the ocean, revealing the gentle ways he could guide, shape, and harmonize with the living rhythms of the sea. As the first stars appeared above, mirrored faintly on the surface of the calm water, Poseidon closed his eyes. He felt the subtle pulse of currents, the gentle dance of fish, rays, and tiny luminescent creatures, and the quiet, harmonious rhythm of the ocean itself. The hidden passages had whispered their secrets, teaching him patience, awareness, and the soft power of guidance. Tomorrow, he knew, would hold further discoveries, more subtle currents, more delicate interactions, and more quiet wonders in the endlessly living sea. And as the gentle waves lapped softly around him, Poseidon let himself drift, fully immersed in the endless, soothing rhythms of the water, a calm, patient exploration of secrets, currents, and the quiet magic of the deep. The early morning arrived softly, a delicate gold spilling across the calm, rolling waves. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the gentle rise and fall of the water cradle him. The faint scent of salt carried on the breeze, mingling with the distant aroma of hidden coastal flowers. Today, he felt a quiet pull, a gentle curiosity that guided him toward the deeper reaches of the sea, where shadows softened and the water moved in slow, mysterious patterns. Descending gradually, he let the denser, cooler water embrace him. Tiny fish shimmered in the filtered sunlight, moving in gentle loops that seemed almost like living ribbons. Poseidon reached out his hand, letting the current swirl softly around his fingers. Each ripple responded to him with subtle acknowledgement, spiraling gracefully through the water and around coral, rocks, and swaying plants. The currents whispered slowly, guiding him along hidden paths, revealing quiet passages that he had not explored before. Deeper he went, following a series of small, winding channels between smooth cliffs. Tiny crustaceans scuttled along the rock surfaces, leaving faint trails in the sand. Poseidon let the currents lift him gently, observing how the water shaped their movement. Tiny fish followed naturally, weaving through delicate arcs. He realized that the ocean had a rhythm of its own, subtle and patient, yet infinitely intricate. Each soft motion of his hand, each gentle push of a current, became part of a living tapestry, weaving together life, water, and light. In a secluded alcove, he encountered a cluster of gentle, translucent jellyfish, drifting in the slow currents. They pulsed softly, their bodies glowing faintly, a delicate light that seemed to flow from within. Poseidon let the currents wrap around him as he traced slow spirals through the water, guiding the jellyfish gently along. They responded gracefully, drifting with elegance, their luminescence scattering soft reflections across the rocks and sand. The The scene was mesmerizing, a quiet ballet of life, light, and gentle motion that filled him with calm wonder. Nearby, a small school of silverfish moved in synchronized loops, tracing arcs through the slow eddies. Poseidon adjusted the current slightly, allowing them to weave through gentle spirals of water. The fish followed without hesitation, their paths curving and twisting as if dancing to a soft, invisible melody. Tiny crustaceans and sea plants swayed along, responding subtly to the patterns. He watched in quiet fascination, noting how even the smallest motion could ripple outward, shaping the behavior of life without disturbance or force. A soft current carried him toward a deeper chamber where the water shimmered faintly in muted teal and sapphire tones. There, he discovered a quiet congregation of rays gliding slowly through the eddies, wings extended in graceful arcs. Poseidon let the currents guide their motion, lifting soft spirals around their bodies so that they moved with ease and precision. Tiny fish followed the arcs, tracing delicate loops around arrays. Each creature moved in harmony with the others, and he felt a profound sense of calm, a quiet understanding that the patterns of life were part of the rhythm of the water itself. In another chamber, faint beams of sunlight filtered through cracks above, illuminating tiny luminescent organisms drifting in the currents. Poseidon guided a few of them into gentle spirals, observing how they responded to his soft influence. The arcs of light danced across the rocks and sand, creating a serene glow that shimmered with quiet beauty. He realized that the deeper he went, the more he could feel the pulse of the ocean, the living heartbeat that connected every creature, every current, and every hidden passage in a delicate, endless pattern. Further along, he encountered a soft spring flowing from a narrow crack in the rocks. The water was cool and clear, carrying a faint sweetness of minerals. Poseidon cupped the flow in his hands, letting it spill gently through his fingers. Tiny luminescent creatures floated along with the stream, drifting in slow, intricate patterns. He guided them carefully, lifting the currents and shaping arcs that traced subtle paths through the water. The creatures responded in perfect harmony, creating faint, glowing trails that shimmered softly in the dim light of the chamber. Time passed slowly as he explored the intricate channels, alcoves, and passages. Poseidon observed the way currents intertwined, forming soft loops, eddies, and spirals. Tiny creatures moved in response, tracing the arcs with delicate precision. He realized that the patterns of the deep were like a hidden language, a quiet, rhythmic dialogue between the living sea and the creatures within it. Every soft wave, every gentle spiral, every faint ripple carried meaning, revealing the ocean's secrets to those who moved with patience and attention. In a narrow tunnel, he found a gentle convergence of currents, swirling in slow, hypnotic arcs around smooth rocks and soft coral. Poseidon floated there, letting the water brush against him in delicate spirals. He guided the eddies lightly with his hands, observing how tiny fish, jellyfish, and other creatures followed the curves naturally. The scene felt like a quiet celebration of rhythm and harmony, a soft recognition of the delicate connections that bound the ocean together. Each motion was a note in the song of the sea, a whisper in the quiet symphony of life beneath the waves. A small group of rays glided past again, moving in gentle arcs. Poseidon allowed the currents to lift them in slow, flowing patterns. Tiny schools of fish followed their motion, weaving through arcs and loops, tracing invisible ribbons in the water. The soft, harmonious interplay of light, creatures, and currents filled him with a sense of deep, calm satisfaction. He realized that the power he was discovering was not one of force, but of subtle guidance, listening, observing, and participating in the quiet rhythms that already existed. As the day moved toward evening, the currents carried him gently upward, closer to the lighter waters near the surface. The soft gold of the fading sun shimmered across the waves, reflecting faint patterns on the calm water. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock, letting the gentle ripple of currents lap softly against his skin. The quiet magic of the hidden currents, the soft patterns of light, and the graceful motion of the creatures had revealed the depth of his own subtle influence. He understood now that he could guide without disturbing, shape without forcing, and harmonize with the living rhythms of the sea in a quiet, patient way. Above, the sky turned soft lavender and rose, and the first stars appeared, mirrored faintly in the calm water. Poseidon leaned back, letting the currents cradle him. He felt a quiet anticipation, a gentle curiosity about what he might discover next in the hidden channels, the quiet eddies, and the gentle spirals of the deep. Tomorrow would bring new patterns, new creatures, and further understanding of the delicate, living rhythms of the ocean. And as the waves lapped softly against him, Poseidon allowed himself to drift, immersed in the endless, soothing patterns of currents, light, and life. He was learning the gentle, patient art of guiding the ocean, listening to its quiet language, and participating in the slow, harmonious dance that connected every creature, every current, and every hidden passage beneath the water. The evening arrived softly, a pale silver light spreading across the calm sea. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving streaks of lavender and rose across the water. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the gentle waves carry him slowly, rhythmically, as though the sea itself were breathing him forward. The air was cool and filled with the faint scent of salt, mingling with the distant aroma of coastal flowers. Tonight, there was a quiet magic in the air, a gentle pull from above that seemed to echo in the rhythm of the waves. He descended slowly, letting the cooler water envelop him. The current seemed to respond differently tonight, moving with a soft, undulating cadence. Tiny fish glimmered faintly under the silver light, their movements tracing gentle arcs through the water. Poseidon extended a hand, letting the current swirl softly around his fingers. Each ripple seemed to carry a quiet whisper, a subtle message from the moonlit waves. He realized that the celestial body above, pale and steady, was guiding the rhythms of the ocean, a quiet pulse that influenced every current, every eddy, and every living creature beneath the surface. The deeper he went, the more he felt the subtle shifts in the tides. Gentle waves rolled slowly through narrow channels, curling softly around smooth rocks and swaying plants. Poseidon traced arcs with his hands, letting the currents follow his quiet intention while also feeling their natural pull. Tiny luminescent creatures drifted through the water, pulsing softly as they moved along the arcs he guided. Small schools of fish wove in synchronized loops, following the quiet rhythm of both the water and the moon above. In a secluded chamber, the currents converged gently, creating slow, spiraling patterns. Poseidon floated there, letting the water move around him in delicate circles. He observed how even the smallest motion could ripple outward, shaping the motion of fish, jellyfish, and other creatures without ever disturbing their natural harmony. The gentle luminescence of tiny creatures shimmered faintly, casting soft patterns across the rocks and sand. He felt a profound calm, a quiet awareness of the way the moon's light influenced the tides and how his soft touch could harmonize with it. A school of rays glided gracefully through the currents, wings extended like delicate sails. Poseidon allowed the water to lift them in soft, elegant arcs. Tiny fish followed, weaving through loops created by the subtle eddies. Each motion seemed to resonate with the faint pulse of the moonlit tides, a gentle dance between celestial rhythm, water, and life. He realized that the tides themselves were a living, breathing force, and that by listening and moving with them, he could participate in a quiet, harmonious symphony of the sea. Further along, he discovered a narrow tunnel where the moonlight filtered in faint beams through cracks above. The water shimmered softly, reflecting the pale silver glow across the rocks and sand. Poseidon let the currents guide him slowly, tracing gentle spirals through the chamber. Tiny luminescent organisms floated along with the eddies, pulsing in soft, rhythmic flashes. Fish traced slow, looping arcs around them, and delicate plants swayed in quiet response. The entire space seemed alive with the gentle heartbeat of the ocean, attuned to the quiet influence of the moon. In another chamber, he found a soft spring emerging from the rocks, the water cooler and sweeter than the surrounding sea. He cupped it in his hands, letting it spill in delicate streams. Tiny glowing creatures drifted along the flow, and he guided them gently in arcs, tracing patterns that echoed the slow rise and fall of the tides. The moonlight above filtered down, painting faint silver streaks on the sand and rocks. The interplay of currents, light, and life created a mesmerizing, tranquil display that filled him with quiet joy. Time passed slowly as Poseidon explored the moonlit currents, tracing gentle spirals and loops through narrow channels and hidden alcoves. The luminescent creatures pulsed softly, the rays glided gracefully, and tiny schools of fish moved with calm precision. Every ripple, every arc, every soft motion became part of a larger pattern, a harmonious dialogue between the living sea, its creatures, and the steady, silent pull of the moon. He felt a deep connection, a subtle recognition that the tides were not merely water in motion, but a living rhythm that could be guided with patience and care. A soft current carried him toward a wider chamber, where the moonlight shimmered faintly across the surface. The water flowed in slow, hypnotic arcs, and the creatures moved in perfect harmony with the eddies he guided. Poseidon traced gentle spirals with his hands, lifting currents in delicate loops. The luminescent organisms followed, creating faint, glowing trails across the sand and rocks. The soft, rhythmic rise and fall of the tide resonated with him, a quiet pulse that seemed to echo his own heartbeat. As the night deepened, Poseidon allowed himself to drift, letting the currents carry him slowly toward the surface. The moon hung pale and steady above, casting silver light across the gentle waves. He rested on a smooth rock, letting the water ripple softly around him, feeling the quiet influence of tide shaped by moonlight. Tiny fish and luminescent creatures moved in arcs around him, and the soft glow of the moon painted delicate reflections across the water. He felt a profound sense of calm, a quiet understanding of the subtle power flowing through the ocean, the creatures, and himself. Above, the sky deepened to a rich indigo, and the first stars appeared faintly, mirrored in the calm surface of the sea. Poseidon leaned back into the gentle embrace of the waves, letting the currents cradle him. The moonlit tides whispered their quiet secrets, and he listened with careful attention, feeling the subtle harmony of light, water, and life. The patterns he had discovered in hidden channels and luminescent depths now seemed to expand across the larger ocean, carried by the steady rhythm of moon and tides. He realized that the moon's pull was a gentle teacher, guiding him to understand the natural rhythm of the sea. The soft rise and fall of tides, the delicate spirals of currents, and the quiet dances of fish, rays, and luminescent creatures all responded to this celestial rhythm. And as he drifted, immersed in the moonlit currents, he felt a quiet anticipation for the adventures yet to come. The new patterns, new creatures, and gentle magic of the ocean waiting for him beyond the next wave. The night grew still and serene, and Poseidon let the gentle waves carry him slowly. He felt the subtle pulse of the moon in every ripple, every arc, every soft eddy. The sea was alive with quiet magic, a living rhythm that flowed through currents, creatures, and tides. He closed his eyes and allowed himself to drift fully in the calm, harmonious energy, knowing that tomorrow would bring new discoveries, new interactions, and further understanding of the quiet, endless dance of the moonlit ocean. And as the stars multiplied above, mirrored in the gentle waves, Poseidon rested, letting the moonlight and the tides guide him into the soothing rhythm of the night, a calm, patient exploration of the living, breathing sea and its endless, gentle mysteries. The early morning sky was painted in soft shades of peach and lavender, reflecting gently across the calm waves. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the water cradle him with a slow, soothing rhythm. The breeze carried a faint scent of salt and distant coastal flowers, blending seamlessly with the gentle pull of the tides. Today, the sea seemed quieter, more reflective, as though it were preparing him for a deeper understanding of its hidden patterns and the subtle influence of the skies above. He descended slowly, allowing the cooler, denser water to wrap around him. Tiny fish shimmered faintly in the filtered light, moving in calm, coordinated arcs. Poseidon extended a hand, letting the currents curl softly around his fingers. The water responded delicately, forming slow spirals and eddies that carried small plants and drifting particles in gentle loops. Each ripple seemed to whisper quietly, hinting at the hidden interplay between the ocean and the celestial rhythms that guided it. Following a winding underwater channel, he noticed the currents shift ever so slightly, moving in arcs that were softer and slower than usual. Poseidon realized that the rising sun was not the only influence. There were subtle patterns shaped by the moon, by distant stars, and by the gentle pull of seasonal changes in the sea. Tiny luminescent creatures pulsed faintly, tracing delicate patterns that seemed to mirror the movements of the currents. Poseidon guided them with soft, deliberate motions, observing how each adjustment created gentle waves of influence across the chamber. In a secluded grotto, the currents converged in slow spirals, creating hypnotic loops that flowed gently around smooth stones and swaying plants. Poseidon floated there, letting the water brush softly against him, tracing arcs with his hands as he guided the motion without forcing it. Tiny fish, jellyfish, and other luminescent creatures followed naturally, weaving through the spirals with quiet precision. The deeper he went, the more he sensed the ocean responding to forces beyond the immediate water. The faint, patient influence of celestial rhythms and seasonal currents shaping subtle patterns in life below. Further along, he discovered a narrow tunnel where faint beams of sunlight filtered through cracks above. The water shimmered with muted shades of turquoise and sapphire, reflecting the gentle light across smooth sand and rocks. Poseidon let the currents guide him slowly through the passage, tracing soft loops and arcs that mirrored the movements of luminescent organisms drifting through the water. Each motion was gentle, deliberate, a quiet conversation between himself, the currents, and the creatures around him. In one chamber, he discovered a gentle spring emerging from a crack in the rocks. The water was cool, clear, and slightly sweet, carrying subtle minerals that mingled with the salt of the surrounding sea. Poseidon cupped it in his hands, letting it spill softly in delicate streams. Tiny glowing creatures drifted along the flow, following gentle spirals that traced patterns shaped by both the currents and the distant pull of celestial rhythms. He guided them carefully, feeling the quiet interplay between tides, currents, and the faint, unseen influence of the moon and stars above. Time passed slowly as Poseidon explored the hidden passages and subtle channels of the sea. He observed the way currents intertwined, forming arcs, loops, and spirals, and how creatures moved in perfect harmony with them. Each ripple, each gentle eddy, each pulse of luminescent light seemed to carry the faint signature of forces beyond water, revealing the hidden poetry of the ocean. Poseidon felt a deep calm, a quiet awareness that he was learning to harmonize not just with the living sea, but with the wider rhythm of the natural world. As the afternoon sun began its descent, he noticed subtle shifts in temperature and flow. The currents softened in some places, grew slightly swifter in others, and the luminescent creatures adjusted their arcs to match the delicate changes. Poseidon followed the patterns, tracing soft spirals with his hands, guiding eddies and ripples in gentle loops. He realized that even small seasonal changes influenced the movements of the sea in intricate ways, creating patterns that were both predictable and endlessly surprising. A school of gentle rays glided past him, wings extended in slow, flowing arcs. Poseidon let the currents lift them gracefully, tracing subtle spirals that carried them through the chamber. Tiny schools of fish followed in arcs around the rays, weaving through eddies with precision. The movement was hypnotic, a slow, calming dance that harmonized with the faint rhythms of celestial pull. Each motion, each ripple, each interaction between creatures and currents seemed to reflect a quiet understanding of the interconnectedness of life, water, and the forces above. In another hidden grotto, faint beams of sunlight mingled with the soft glow of luminescent organisms drifting in the water. Poseidon guided the currents gently, creating soft loops and arcs that enhanced the motion of fish, jellyfish, and small crabs scuttling along the rocks. He noticed how the subtle pull of tides and seasonal shifts influenced the behavior of creatures and currents alike. The ocean was alive in ways deeper and quieter than he had known, a patient, harmonious system that responded to his careful guidance and the soft influence of celestial rhythms. As the sun dipped lower, casting muted gold and lavender across the water, Poseidon allowed himself to drift slowly, carried by the gentle currents. The creatures followed his arcs, moving in harmony with the water and each other. He felt a profound sense of calm, a quiet satisfaction in understanding the soft interplay between tides, currents, creatures, and the wider natural world. The subtle whispers of celestial influence, the faint pull of seasonal changes, and the gentle guidance of his own hand combined in a quiet symphony of motion and life. Above, the first stars appeared, mirrored faintly in the calm surface of the sea. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock, letting the water ripple softly around him. He felt the pulse of the tides, the gentle spirals of hidden currents, and the quiet glow of luminescent creatures moving through their arcs. Each element was connected, each pattern was meaningful, and he realized that the ocean itself was a living, breathing entity harmonizing with the cycles of the sky above and the soft rhythm of life within. Night deepened, and Poseidon let the gentle waves carry him slowly, rhythmically. He felt the soft influence of the moon above, the subtle guidance of distant stars, and the quiet pulse of seasonal currents shaping the motion of water and life around him. He closed his eyes and allowed himself to drift fully in the calm, harmonious energy of the ocean, a patient exploration of patterns, life, and the celestial rhythms that connected every wave, every creature, and every hidden passage beneath the surface. And as the soft moonlight reflected in the quiet waves and the first faint stars twinkled above, Poseidon rested, letting the tides, currents, and celestial whispers guide him into the soothing, endless rhythm of the night, a calm, patient journey through the subtle magic of the living sea and its connection to the wider world above. The morning light arrived slowly, spreading gentle streaks of gold across the calm sea. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the gentle waves cradle him as he breathed in the soft scent of salt and distant flowers from hidden cliffs. Today, the sea seemed to carry a different energy, a quieter, patient rhythm that hinted at subtle changes in the world beneath the waves. He felt a gentle curiosity stir within him, guiding him toward areas where seasonal shifts began to reveal themselves in the delicate patterns of life below. Descending gradually, he allowed the cooler, denser water to wrap around him, flowing softly over his shoulders and arms. Tiny fish shimmered faintly, moving in slow, coordinated arcs that reflected the calm pulse of the ocean. Poseidon extended his hand, letting the current swirl gently around his fingers. Each ripple responded with a quiet whisper, carrying faint messages of change. The subtle shifts in temperature, salinity, and the movement of creatures that marked the slow turning of the seasons. He followed a winding underwater passage where small clusters of coral and plants swayed gently with the currents. The luminescent creatures he had discovered in deeper chambers drifted along in rhythmic patterns, their faint glow pulsing in harmony with the water. Poseidon observed them carefully, noting how their movements subtly shifted with the seasonal changes. Tiny fish traced gentle loops through eddies, while crabs scuttled softly along rocks, leaving faint trails in the sand. Each small motion was part of the larger rhythm of the ocean, a quiet reflection of the cycles above and below. Further along, he encountered a school of rays gliding slowly through a gentle eddy. Their wings moved in soft arcs. Lifted by currents, he guided carefully with his hands. Poseidon noticed a faint shift in their paths, a slow migration that followed subtle patterns of water temperature and light. He followed alongside them, tracing delicate spirals with the currents so that the creatures could move freely and safely. The scene was hypnotic, a soft, flowing dance that mirrored the larger cycles of the sea and sky. In a deeper chamber, a small spring emerged from a crack in the rocks, cool and sweet with minerals. Poseidon cupped the water, letting it spill through his fingers in thin streams. Tiny luminescent creatures followed along, drifting in arcs that traced the flow of the current. He guided the streams into gentle spirals, observing how even minor shifts in temperature or light influenced the patterns of life around him. The chamber shimmered softly, filled with quiet reflections of light and movement, a subtle reminder of the ocean's ever-changing, harmonious rhythm. As the day progressed, Poseidon noticed the migration of small fish moving toward warmer currents. They traced slow, undulating paths through the water, weaving through the delicate arcs and eddies he shaped with careful hands. Tiny crustaceans followed in turn, moving gently along the rocks and sand. Poseidon allowed the currents to carry them in loops, letting the patterns unfold naturally. Each creature moved with quiet purpose, guided by instinct, the soft rhythms of water, and the subtle touch of his gentle influence. A soft breeze from the surface drifted downward, carrying the faint scent of salt and distant blooms. Poseidon followed a winding passage toward a shallow cavern where light filtered through cracks above, casting muted gold and silver reflections across the smooth sand. The luminescent creatures pulsed faintly, their glow responding to the changing light and temperature of the seasonal currents. Poseidon guided gentle spirals, tracing loops with his fingers and letting the currents move in harmony with both the creatures and the wider rhythms of the sea. Further into the cavern, he observed the quiet arrival of other creatures, tiny crustaceans, fish, and small rays that had traveled with the changing tides. Poseidon moved gently among them, guiding the currents so that each could find safe paths through the water. The patterns of migration, the soft glow of luminescent life, and the subtle shifts in temperature all combined to create a serene, hypnotic rhythm that seemed to echo the changing seasons themselves. In a small hidden grotto, he noticed the soft accumulation of seaweed and sand along the floor, shaped into gentle arcs by currents he had only recently begun to understand. Poseidon traced his hands along the flowing water, lifting delicate spirals and arcs to guide the creatures safely. Tiny fish and glowing plankton followed his gentle patterns, their movements tracing faint loops of light and motion across the rocks and sand. The interplay of current, life, and seasonal change felt like a quiet song, a lullaby of the living ocean that only patience and attention could hear. Time moved slowly as Poseidon continued to explore the seasonal rhythms of the sea. He noticed small, gentle storms forming above the surface, their distant rumbles felt through subtle currents below. The water responded in soft arcs and eddies, lifting particles and swaying plants with gentle care. Poseidon guided the currents delicately, ensuring that the movement of water, creatures, and light remained calm and harmonious. Even the storms seemed to carry a quiet, patient rhythm, a reminder that change could be gentle and flowing, rather than harsh or abrupt. As evening approached, Poseidon allowed himself to drift slowly toward the surface, letting the currents carry him gently. The soft, golden light of the setting sun shimmered across the water, reflecting faint arcs and loops shaped by both tides and seasonal shifts. Tiny luminescent creatures followed gentle spirals through the currents, and small schools of fish traced delicate paths among the glowing patterns. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock, letting the water ripple softly around him, feeling the subtle pulse of life in the sea and the quiet influence of seasonal change. Above, the sky deepened to soft shades of rose and lavender, and the first stars appeared, mirrored faintly in the calm waves. Poseidon leaned back into the gentle embrace of the ocean, letting the currents lift him slowly. He felt the quiet movement of creatures, the gentle shifts of tides and currents, and the soft influence of celestial rhythms that guided the patterns of life below. The seasonal changes had revealed new layers of the ocean's quiet magic, teaching him patience, observation, and gentle guidance. Night fell fully, and Poseidon let the waves carry him slowly, rhythmically. He closed his eyes and felt the faint pulse of the moon above, the subtle arcs of currents, and the quiet, harmonious migrations of the creatures below. The sea was alive with calm energy, responding to his gentle influence and the ever-changing patterns of nature. He allowed himself to drift fully in the soothing, patient rhythm of the ocean, feeling the delicate balance of tides, currents, light, and life. And as the stars multiplied above, reflected in the gentle waves, Poseidon rested, letting the seasonal rhythms guide him into the quiet, endless dance of the living sea, a calm, patient journey through the subtle magic of creatures, currents, and the gentle passage of time beneath the water. The morning sun arrived slowly, spilling soft gold across the calm sea. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the gentle waves cradle him as he breathed in the faint scent of salt and distant coastal blooms. The sea felt quiet today, patient, as though inviting him to explore hidden wonders that lay beneath the surface, places where life moved in slow, harmonious rhythms. He descended gradually, letting the cooler, denser water embrace him like a soft cloak. Tiny fish shimmered as they passed, weaving through faint spirals and gentle eddies. Poseidon extended his hand, feeling the currents curl softly around his fingers. Each ripple carried a subtle vibration, a gentle hum of life that moved in quiet synchrony with the ocean. He followed the arcs, tracing the paths of small creatures as they moved with natural grace, observing their patterns with patient fascination. Soon, he discovered a cluster of underwater gardens, sheltered between smooth rock formations. Corals stretched upward like gentle towers, soft anemones swayed in the currents, and tiny plants floated gracefully, brushing against the sand. The gardens were alive with movement. Fish traced slow loops, luminescent creatures pulsed in quiet rhythm, and small crabs scuttled softly along the rocky floor. Poseidon let the currents lift him slowly among the growth, tracing gentle arcs with his hands to guide creatures safely without disturbing the delicate balance of the gardens. A school of rays glided gracefully through the water, wings extended like soft sails. Poseidon followed them, letting the currents carry him in slow spirals that matched the rhythm of their motion. Tiny fish darted in arcs around them, weaving through gentle eddies, while luminescent plankton pulsed faintly in the soft light filtering from above. The patterns of movement were intricate yet peaceful, a quiet reminder of the subtle interconnections that bound life beneath the waves. In one secluded alcove, Poseidon discovered the beginnings of new life. Tiny eggs clung delicately to coral branches, swaying softly in the currents. He observed them with careful attention, letting the water carry gentle eddies that ensured their safety. Nearby, small hatchlings floated in synchronized loops, moving with the rhythm of the surrounding currents. Poseidon guided the flows with soft, deliberate motions, watching the cycles of growth unfold naturally, each motion a quiet story of patience, care, and gentle nurturing. He explored further, noticing how different species interacted with one another. Tiny shrimp cleaned coral surfaces, small crabs carried particles along the sand, and luminescent creatures pulsed in arcs that traced the soft spirals of water around them. Each interaction was part of a larger, harmonious pattern, a quiet dance of cooperation and balance. Poseidon moved among them gently, guiding currents, lifting soft arcs, and ensuring that every creature could thrive within the gardens of the deep. The deeper he went, the more he noticed subtle rhythms influenced by tides and moonlight. Currents twisted gently through narrow tunnels, carrying small schools of fish in soft loops, while luminescent plankton pulsed in time with the rise and fall of water. Poseidon traced slow spirals with his hands, guiding the currents without forcing them, allowing the natural flow of the sea to shape the patterns. He felt a profound calm, a quiet connection with the life cycles and rhythms that had quietly persisted for countless days and nights. In another chamber, a hidden spring trickled down from the rocks, its water cool and slightly sweet. Poseidon cupped it in his hands, letting the stream spill softly over coral and sand. Tiny glowing creatures followed along, tracing arcs through the gentle eddies. He guided them in subtle spirals, enhancing the natural movement without altering it. The chamber glimmered softly in the muted light, filled with the delicate hum of life and the quiet beauty of the underwater gardens. Time moved slowly, and Poseidon observed the gentle growth of plants and creatures alike. Tiny shoots of seaweed swayed gracefully in the currents, while young fish practiced weaving through delicate eddies. Luminescent organisms traced soft loops around coral towers, painting faint arcs of glowing light across the sand. Each moment was a small story of growth, balance, and interconnectedness, a meditation on the quiet magic that sustained life beneath the waves. A soft, rolling current carried him toward a wider chamber where rays glided gracefully in long arcs. Poseidon traced slow spirals with the water, letting the creatures move in harmony with the flow. Small schools of fish followed along, weaving intricate paths around rocks and coral. Luminescent plankton pulsed gently in response, casting faint, ethereal light across the chamber. Poseidon felt the quiet satisfaction of observing a world moving in harmony, guided only by patience, attention, and gentle care. As evening approached, the light from the surface faded to muted gold and lavender. Poseidon allowed himself to drift slowly toward the upper currents, letting the water lift him in gentle spirals. Tiny creatures followed the arcs, weaving in soft, hypnotic loops. The gardens of the deep seemed to pulse with life and rhythm, responding to his subtle guidance and the quiet influence of tides and moonlight. Each movement, each ripple, each soft eddy reinforced the delicate balance of life, growth, and harmony that he had begun to understand more fully. Above, the first stars appeared, reflected faintly in the calm waves. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock, letting the currents ripple softly around him. He felt the pulse of life in the gardens, the gentle shifts of tides and moonlight, and the quiet magic of interconnected patterns beneath the waves. The ocean was alive with a patient rhythm, and he understood that his gentle influence, combined with the natural currents and celestial rhythms, could help sustain the beauty and harmony of the deep. Night deepened, and Poseidon let the gentle waves carry him slowly. He closed his eyes and felt the soft, continuous hum of life, currents, and moonlit tides surrounding him. The gardens of the deep pulsed with quiet magic, and he drifted in harmony with them, sensing the gentle cycles of growth, care, and connection that bound all living things together. And as the stars multiplied above, reflected in the calm surface, Poseidon rested, letting the quiet currents, luminescent life, and moonlit tides guide him into the endless, soothing rhythm of the living ocean, a calm, patient journey through the delicate, interconnected wonders of the deep. The morning light spilled slowly across the calm sea, soft gold and pale rose stretching across the water. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the gentle undulations of the waves cradle him. The faint scent of salt and distant coastal blooms drifted across the breeze, mingling with the quiet pulse of the tides. Today, he felt a quiet tug toward the wider expanse of the ocean, where the rhythms of life unfolded on a larger scale, and larger creatures moved in gentle, sweeping arcs across the deep. He descended gradually, letting the cooler, denser water embrace him. Tiny fish shimmered faintly as they passed, weaving soft spirals through the gentle currents. Poseidon extended a hand, tracing arcs in the water and feeling the currents respond with delicate acknowledgement. Each ripple carried subtle vibrations, a quiet message from the ocean itself, guiding him toward areas where larger creatures traveled, following their own slow, patient rhythms. As he moved through the open waters, he noticed a distant glimmer, a soft, undulating movement beneath the surface. Gradually, a small group of gentle whales emerged, their massive forms moving in slow, flowing arcs. Poseidon observed them carefully, letting the currents lift and guide them in subtle spirals. He traced gentle loops alongside them, feeling the harmony of their movement and the quiet, expansive rhythm they carried across the wide sea. The whales exhaled softly, sending faint plumes of bubbles through the water. Tiny fish and luminescent creatures followed in arcs around their bodies, weaving intricate patterns that shimmered faintly in the filtered light. Poseidon guided gentle spirals, ensuring the creatures moved safely alongside the giants, their paths merging naturally with the flow of water. Each movement was deliberate but calm, a quiet collaboration between himself, the whales, and the surrounding currents. Further along, he observed a group of slow-moving sea turtles gliding gracefully through the water. Their shells reflected muted golds and greens in the filtered sunlight, and their movements traced gentle arcs that complemented the rhythm of the larger ocean currents. Poseidon followed alongside them, lifting subtle eddies and tracing spirals that guided both turtles and smaller creatures around hidden reefs and clusters of coral. The interplay was mesmerizing, a quiet ballet of motion, light, and life across a vast, open expanse. In one particularly tranquil area, rays glided gracefully in sweeping arcs. Their wings extended like soft sails, lifted by the currents Poseidon shaped with gentle care. Tiny schools of fish followed the arcs, weaving delicate loops around arrays. Luminescent plankton pulsed softly, painting faint trails of light across the sand and rocks below. Poseidon felt the calm satisfaction of observing a world moving in harmony, guided by patience, careful attention, and gentle influence rather than force. A soft current carried him toward a wider chamber of open sea, where gentle dolphins appeared, playing in slow arcs. Poseidon allowed the currents to lift them in sweeping spirals, tracing patterns that harmonized with the movements of nearby whales and turtles. Small fish followed, weaving in unhurried loops around them. The dolphins nudged Poseidon softly, swimming in graceful arcs alongside him as if acknowledging his presence and subtle guidance. The scene was a peaceful symphony of life, water, and motion across the vast open ocean. He explored further, noticing how the patterns of migration were connected to tides, moonlight, and seasonal currents. Schools of fish moved in unbroken arcs, weaving through eddies formed naturally by larger creatures. Rays, turtles, and whales followed the same rhythms, creating gentle, interwoven patterns that stretched across the expanse of water. Poseidon traced delicate spirals with his hands, lifting eddies and guiding currents so that each creature could move safely and gracefully through the interconnected flow. In a secluded trench, he discovered the faint shimmer of bioluminescent creatures, their pulses tracing arcs and loops that mirrored the migrations above. Poseidon guided gentle spirals through the currents, allowing the luminescent life below to follow the rhythm set by the giants of the sea. Tiny creatures moved in harmony with whales, rays, and turtles above, creating a full, layered tapestry of motion and light that filled him with quiet. Time passed slowly as he observed the migrations, tracing soft loops and spirals that harmonized creatures, currents, and the wider ocean rhythms. Poseidon noticed how even subtle shifts in the tides affected movement across great distances. Each ripple, each gentle eddy, carried influence across the water, and he learned to anticipate and guide without disturbance. The ocean itself seemed to breathe with the migrations, pulsing softly in time with the movements of its largest and smallest residents alike. As evening approached, the surface light softened to muted gold and lavender, reflecting faint arcs of movement across the calm waves. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock, letting the currents ripple gently around him. He observed the quiet interplay of whales, rays, turtles, dolphins, and smaller fish, all moving in harmony with tides, moonlight, and the gentle guidance of his hands. The vastness of the ocean felt alive with subtle rhythms, a living symphony of motion that he had only begun to understand. Above, the first stars appeared, mirrored faintly in the calm surface. Poseidon let the gentle waves lift him slowly, breathing in the quiet energy of life and motion around him. He felt the pulse of tides, the subtle arcs of currents, and the soft rhythm of migrations across the open sea. The gentle giants of the ocean carried a calm, steady energy, teaching him patience, awareness, and the quiet influence of harmonizing with the world rather than guiding it forcefully. Night deepened, and Poseidon allowed himself to drift with the gentle currents, feeling the faint glow of bioluminescent life beneath him and the graceful arcs of larger creatures above. The migration stretched across the wide expanse, carrying the rhythms of the ocean with patience and quiet magic. He closed his eyes and let the waves, creatures, and celestial rhythms guide him, drifting in harmony with the endless, soothing motion of the living sea. And as the stars multiplied in the quiet sky, reflected softly on the surface of the waves, Poseidon rested, letting the gentle giants, flowing currents, and moonlit migrations carry him into the calm, rhythmic pulse of the ocean, a serene, patient journey across the quiet, interconnected expanses of the deep. The early morning light filtered softly across the waves, painting the sea in pale gold and gentle lavender. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the slow undulations of the water cradle him. The faint scent of salt mingled with distant blooms from hidden cliffs, and the soft rhythm of the tides seemed to carry a quiet invitation. Today, the ocean whispered to him in subtler ways, revealing the quiet conversations that passed through currents and flows among its creatures. He descended gradually, letting the cooler, denser water embrace him, and noticed the faint shimmer of tiny fish weaving through arcs in the soft morning light. Poseidon extended his hand, tracing delicate spirals in the water. Each ripple responded gently, carrying the quiet hum of life, the faint currents that connected creatures in gentle dialogue, their subtle movements communicating curiosity, caution, or companionship. Following a winding channel, he observed a school of fish moving in synchronized loops. Each small shift of a tail or fin sent ripples through the surrounding water, arcs that guided nearby creatures and formed patterns of calm, unspoken conversation. Poseidon traced gentle loops alongside them, allowing currents to lift the fish in soft spirals. He noticed that the movement of each creature influenced others, creating a subtle rhythm of interactions that passed like a quiet song through the water. Deeper, he discovered a congregation of rays gliding through a slow eddy. Their wings moved in graceful arcs, and Poseidon allowed the currents to lift them in gentle spirals. Tiny luminescent creatures followed, pulsing softly, while small schools of fish weaved in arcs around the rays. He traced soft loops with his hands, harmonizing currents and observing how each creature's motion communicated with another. The eddies carried faint, wordless signals, a quiet dialogue expressed through motion rather than sound. In a secluded alcove, Poseidon noticed a small cluster of crabs scuttling along rocks. Their movement created tiny currents that nudged nearby plankton and tiny fish along subtle arcs. Poseidon followed the flow, gently guiding the currents to ensure every creature moved safely and gracefully. The interplay of tides, movements, and luminescent life formed a tapestry of conversation, patterns that were quiet, subtle, and endlessly intricate. Further along, he discovered small fish weaving through floating seaweed, each flick of a fin generating gentle eddies that brushed against other fish. Poseidon traced soft spirals, lifting the currents into arcs that encouraged harmony and minimized disturbance. The fish responded naturally, creating smooth patterns that flowed through the water like a delicate dance. He began to understand that the language of the ocean was carried in arcs, loops, and currents, a rhythm of subtle communication that guided life beneath the waves. A soft current carried him toward a wider chamber where gentle dolphins glided in sweeping arcs. Poseidon let the currents lift them slowly, tracing loops that harmonized with their natural movement. Small schools of fish followed, weaving intricate paths around rocks and coral. Luminescent plankton pulsed softly in time with the dolphins' movements, creating arcs of light that seemed to ripple in response. Poseidon felt a quiet joy in observing these unspoken conversations, currents speaking to currents, creatures responding in subtle harmony. In another chamber, a hidden spring trickled down from the rocks. Poseidon cupped the water, letting it spill gently over the sand and coral. Tiny glowing creatures followed along, drifting in arcs that mirrored the flow of currents above. He traced gentle spirals, enhancing the natural dialogue without interfering. The soft glow of life pulsed in gentle rhythm, echoing the faint hum of interactions that stretched across the deeper currents. Time passed slowly, and Poseidon observed the layers of conversation in the sea. Rays, fish, crabs, and luminescent plankton all communicated in subtle arcs, loops, and spirals, their movements guided by instinct and the soft influence of tides and currents. Poseidon guided with patience, lifting eddies and tracing soft spirals to harmonize interactions. The patterns of life were complex but gentle, a quiet dialogue that revealed the intelligence and rhythm of the ocean itself. As the afternoon sun began to dip, Casting muted gold across the water, Poseidon allowed the currents to carry him toward a narrow channel. There, he noticed how subtle seasonal shifts influenced the flows of conversation among creatures. Small schools of fish moved in arcs that traced the temperature changes. Luminescent organisms pulsed in response to currents, and rays adjusted their flight patterns gently. He traced spirals and loops, letting the movements blend naturally, ensuring that each creature's path could intersect safely with others in quiet harmony. Above, the sky began to soften with shades of rose and lavender. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock, letting the currents ripple gently around him. He observed the patterns of conversation, the quiet arcs of fish, the subtle signals of rays, and the gentle pulses of luminescent life, and realized that even the smallest motion could carry meaning through the ocean. Each ripple, each loop, each gentle eddy was a word in the quiet language of the sea. Night fell softly, and Poseidon allowed the waves to carry him slowly. The moon rose, casting silver light across the calm surface. He felt the quiet dialogue of the ocean, the arcs and spirals of interaction, and the gentle flow of currents that carried messages across hidden chambers and open waters alike. The sea was alive with unspoken conversation, and he understood that by harmonizing with these currents, he could help sustain balance, safety, and gentle rhythm among its creatures. And as the stars multiplied above, mirrored faintly in the calm waves, Poseidon rested, letting the quiet currents, arcs, and spirals guide him into the soothing, endless conversation of the living sea, a calm, patient journey through the subtle language of life, water, and light beneath the waves. The morning sky was pale and quiet, with soft clouds drifting lazily across the sun. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the gentle waves cradle him as he inhaled the faint, briny scent of the sea. The air felt calm, yet beneath the water, currents hinted at subtle shifts, ripples and arcs carrying quiet messages from distant changes above. Today, he sensed the soft influence of the weather on the hidden rhythms of the ocean, a gentle invitation to explore how even the mildest storms could shape life beneath the waves. He descended gradually, letting the cooler water envelop him. Tiny fish glimmered faintly, moving in arcs and loops through subtle eddies. Poseidon extended a hand, tracing gentle spirals through the currents. Each ripple carried a quiet hum, a faint echo of distant winds and clouds above. The ocean's creatures moved in harmony with these signals, adjusting paths and arcs as if speaking in a silent, fluid conversation that flowed across the deep. Following a winding channel, he discovered a school of rays gliding gracefully through a gentle current. Their wings traced slow, sweeping arcs, lifted by the water as it responded to faint breezes from the surface. Poseidon guided subtle spirals alongside them, observing how the rays adjusted their movements to accommodate changes in current, temperature, and flow. Tiny luminescent creatures followed, pulsing softly in harmony with both water and larger inhabitants, their glow forming delicate, transient patterns in the quiet depths. In a secluded alcove, a soft plume of bubbles rose from hidden cracks, stirred by the faint push of a distant breeze. Poseidon let the currents carry him slowly through the chamber, tracing arcs and loops that mirrored the delicate motion of fish, crabs, and luminescent life. He noticed how subtle shifts in water flow altered the interactions between creatures. Small fish swerved gently to avoid the larger shadows of rays and whales, while tiny crustaceans scuttled along rocks, adjusting their paths with care. The entire chamber seemed alive with quiet negotiation, a soft conversation between life and the moving water. Further along, he discovered an underwater garden where corals stretched upward like soft towers and plants swayed in arcs. The gentle influence of surface wind caused faint eddies that brushed across the garden floor, shifting sand and stirring tiny organisms. Poseidon traced delicate spirals through the currents, guiding the movement of fish and luminescent plankton to harmonize with the water's subtle pulse. Each arc and loop reflected the ocean's quiet ability to adjust to changing conditions, a lesson in patience, balance, and careful attention. A school of dolphins appeared in the distance, gliding through sweeping arcs that traced the movement of soft, rolling currents. Poseidon allowed the water to lift them in gentle spirals, observing how even a mild change in surface wind altered the motion of their graceful bodies. Small schools of fish wove carefully around them, while rays followed arcs in the eddies, and luminescent plankton pulsed softly in response. The ocean's inhabitants communicated through motion, responding to subtle shifts in currents with a quiet intelligence that was both mesmerizing and comforting. In another hidden chamber, Poseidon noticed a narrow stream of cooler water flowing in from a deeper trench. The stream interacted gently with the surrounding currents, creating delicate arcs and loops that influenced the patterns of fish and smaller creatures. He guided the flows with soft spirals, letting the water carry creatures safely while preserving the natural rhythm. Tiny bioluminescent organisms followed the arcs, pulsing faintly as if acknowledging the gentle guidance. The chamber seemed to shimmer with quiet life, a reflection of the ocean's harmonious adaptability. Time passed slowly as he observed these interactions, tracing soft spirals and loops, letting currents flow naturally while ensuring each creature could move safely. Rays, dolphins, and whales followed gentle arcs in sync with the tides, while luminescent creatures traced patterns of soft, glowing light in the water. The interplay of currents, life, and subtle weather patterns formed a delicate balance, a quiet, living symphony that spoke without words. As the afternoon sun began to fade, casting muted gold and lavender across the surface, Poseidon allowed himself to drift slowly toward the upper currents. The gentle motion of the water carried him through arcs that mirrored the soft shifts of wind and temperature. Fish traced loops with precision, while luminescent plankton followed subtle spirals. The ocean seemed to breathe in time with the creatures and currents, a quiet rhythm shaped by tides, surface wind, and the soft pulse of life beneath the waves. Above, clouds gathered faintly, casting gentle shadows across the calm surface. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock, letting the water ripple softly around him. He felt the influence of the mild storm above, the subtle changes in currents, the quiet adjustments of creatures, and the soft arcs of interaction that connected life across the water. The ocean's conversation continued, shaped by wind, tides, and currents, and he understood that harmony could be maintained even in the presence of change. Night fell slowly, and Poseidon let the gentle waves carry him in slow, rhythmic motion. The moon rose, casting silver light across the surface, and the ocean responded with quiet arcs and eddies. Dolphins, rays, whales, and luminescent plankton moved in harmony, following the subtle guidance of tides and currents shaped by wind. Poseidon allowed himself to drift fully in the gentle pulse of the sea, feeling the quiet conversation of life, water, and wind across the deep. And as stars began to multiply above, mirrored faintly in the calm waves, Poseidon rested, letting the gentle currents, subtle storms, and quiet arcs guide him into the calm, endless rhythm of the living ocean, a serene journey through the patient, harmonious interplay of life, tides, and gentle weather. The morning light spread softly across the horizon, spilling pale gold across the calm sea. Poseidon floated near the surface, letting the gentle waves lift him in quiet, rhythmic motion. The ocean seemed to hum softly beneath him, a vast, patient heartbeat that had carried him through hidden chambers, migrations, and luminous gardens. Every ripple, every eddy, every graceful arc of creatures he had guided whispered the quiet story of life beneath the waves. Today, the ocean itself seemed to pause, as if inviting him to rest and reflect on the journey he had shared with it. He descended slowly into the cooler, denser water, feeling the soft embrace of currents wrapping around him. Tiny fish shimmered in arcs and loops, their movement calm and precise. Rays glided gracefully overhead, dolphins traced sweeping paths in the distance, and luminescent plankton pulsed faintly, echoing the rhythms of the water. Poseidon extended a hand, guiding soft spirals of current, yet allowing the natural flow to dominate. Each motion felt effortless, harmonious, a quiet partnership between himself and the living ocean. He drifted toward one of the deep gardens he had discovered long ago, coral towers swaying gently, anemones brushing softly against sand, and tiny hatchlings moving in delicate loops. Poseidon let the currents lift him slowly, following the arcs of fish and rays. He traced subtle spirals with his hands, creating a soft symphony of motion that harmonized with the life around him. The patterns were familiar now, quiet conversations that carried meaning across water, currents, and creatures without a single sound. In a hidden alcove, he noticed bioluminescent creatures pulsing in gentle arcs. Their light reflected across smooth rocks and sand, painting delicate, ephemeral patterns in the water. Poseidon traced loops alongside them, letting currents and arcs blend naturally. He felt the interconnectedness of everything, the smallest plankton, the largest whales, and every movement in between. Each ripple, each spiral, each soft eddy was part of the living ocean story, and he understood how every gentle action shaped the quiet balance of the deep. Far above, the sun shimmered on the waves, and the faint influence of the moon began to appear. Poseidon observed distant tides stretching across wide expanses of water, carrying messages to faraway creatures and hidden shores. The movements of whales, rays, dolphins, and fish traced arcs that echoed across currents, creating a delicate web of connection. The ocean was vast, endless, and alive in ways both gentle and profound, a living tapestry of light, motion, and quiet life. He allowed himself to drift slowly, letting the currents carry him across open waters. He noticed the subtle influence of weather, tides, and celestial rhythms, how each affected the conversations of creatures and the arcs of luminescent life. The ocean's pulse was constant, patient, and calm, stretching from hidden chambers to the farthest reaches of the sea. Poseidon felt a deep serenity in the knowledge that he had guided its patterns with care, harmonizing rather than controlling, listening rather than demanding. A school of rays glided nearby, wings extended in soft arcs. Dolphins traced slow loops in the currents, their movements weaving in gentle coordination with the tides. Luminescent plankton followed spirals through eddies, casting faint glows that reflected the quiet energy of the ocean. Poseidon traced gentle spirals alongside them, letting the patterns unfold naturally. Every creature, every current, every ripple was part of a continuous, harmonious flow, and he felt the profound peace of belonging to this endless rhythm. He drifted higher toward the surface, where soft waves lapped gently against hidden reefs and distant shores. The ocean sparkled under the afternoon sun, waves gliding in arcs that reflected the patterns of life beneath. Poseidon rested on a smooth rock, letting the water ripple softly around him. He felt the pulse of the tides, the quiet hum of currents, and the soft glow of luminescent life below. The ocean itself seemed to breathe with him, each motion calm, patient, and unhurried. As evening approached, the sky softened to muted shades of rose, lavender, and gold. Stars began to appear, mirrored faintly in the calm surface. Poseidon closed his eyes and let the gentle waves carry him slowly. The whales, rays, dolphins, and small fish moved in harmony, tracing arcs that stretched across vast distances, all subtly connected by the currents he had learned to understand. The ocean was alive, patient, and serene, and he felt a quiet joy in being a part of its endless, gentle rhythm. The night deepened, and the moon rose high, casting silver light across the water. Currents flowed in soft, continuous spirals, lifting creatures and shaping their arcs in quiet conversation. Poseidon let the ocean carry him, drifting in harmony with every pulse, every ripple, every quiet movement that stretched across hidden gardens, migrations, and open waters. The sea whispered its secrets gently, endlessly, patiently, and he understood that the ocean was always alive, always moving, always harmonizing with itself. And as the stars multiplied above, reflected in the calm waves, Poseidon rested fully, letting the gentle currents, the arcs of creatures, the soft glow of life, and the moonlit tides carry him into the infinite embrace of the ocean. He was part of its rhythm, and it was part of him. The living sea, patient and eternal, held him in quiet harmony. The waves rose and fell softly, carrying every story, every creature, every gentle motion in a calm, continuous rhythm. And Poseidon, god of the sea, drifted peacefully within it, a guardian, a companion, and a witness to the serene, endless magic of the living ocean. The ocean whispered, and all was calm.